Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Longbox. This we have Fabrizio Aiello here from Horace H. Hoover comic, and I have my first no show, so we switched at the last minute. So thank you for saving and coming in. I sent the invite out to a couple of people, and if anybody else is watching, they want to come in and talk. It's a free for all. I'll change everything later once we close out. So what's up, Fabrizio?
Not much. I like free for alls. That way, I don't have to know too much about one particular thing. I could
Yeah.
just know just a tiny bit about a lot of things.
Well, last week or 2 weeks ago, the guy messaged me. He was in the hospital, so I can't get mad. So I just switched it to a free for all and had a couple of people come on. So free for all is just whenever there's a problem. Tomorrow I got Frankie B. Washington coming on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I
Yeah,
saw he just posted a figure or a toy that they're going to get produced, which looks really cool.
oh, cool. Oh, I downloaded everything for the Horace H. Hoover resin mint. I cleaned out my printer today, and tomorrow I will get it going. It's been sitting for like a year, and it was covered with dust, and I didn't want to print it, so I cleaned it today, and I'm letting it dry off, and then tomorrow I'm going to try to print a little resin figure.
Oh, that's awesome. So, what kind of printer do you have?
It's a Mars Elugu 2.
Okay.
So it's about this big. It's small, and I know it's funny. I want to get the Jupiter, the huge one, because
Yeah.
everything I want to print is huge, and I don't want to print piecemeal and glue it. I want so. But I never even. I want to get a giant one, and I never even use the small one.
Yeah, I mean, I really got into 3D printing for a while, but those little LCD ones are affordable and they do a good job. As long they can get particular sometimes, they don't stick to the build plate and all that kind of stuff, but when they work well.
Uh, I what I can't even talk. This was on Amazon. It was like a $400 printer, resin printer, and it was on Amazon for like 1 day sale, $189. So I was like, I bought it, and then it showed up, and then when it showed up, I got like that instant buyer's remorse. I'm like, what am I even gonna do? I don't know how to work it, so it just sat in a box for like 6 months, and then I took it out of the box and I tried to use it. My friend's like, oh yeah, you just print what you want, and I'm like, that I didn't realize it's not that complicated, but it's intimidating when you don't know what you're doing. Like I didn't know I had
Yeah.
to get that JIT program, and then so I got the JIT program. Then I put everything in that, and it still wouldn't print. It was, and then like, no, you got to do the slice, and then I'm like, you got to talk to me like I'm a 2-year-old. So
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
and
if
then
you
the build plate. Then when I'd scrape it off, I'd break it. So like
Yep.
you put it at an angle, so.
Yeah, like it can get fiddly because and we can talk about 3D printing because
Yeah, sure.
I have a lot of experience with it. The doing supports, having it automatically do supports, where
Yeah,
the orientation of the piece on the build plate, the if it's hollow or not, all of those things can kind of ruin a print. And the unfortunate thing about resin printing is it's really high quality and you can get really smooth layers, but it takes a long time to print. I mean, you could spend 9 hours on a print and you don't realize until 5 hours in that the print is busted
yeah, I
and you
did
got
that.
to
I made a
start
Captain
over.
America shield, and it said it was going to be like 2 hours. So I came down here, started playing a video game, and next thing you know, it's like 4 hours. I go up there, it's done, and it was like a little nugget like this.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I'll definitely let me know what happens with the horse print. I got a couple of copies from other services just to make sure that
Yeah,
the model was good. So it looks like it should print depending on, the size and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
You
So
you painted one too, right? Was that you?
I didn't paint mine. That's a different one.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
different one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I printed the tiny one, so it would like be in the same scale with these board game.
Okay, cool.
This is actually a resin printed that I got from Etsy. I got this before I got my printer. But this, that's a business. People go on Etsy and they'll make like if you get like a little Parcheesi pawn, they'll make like little figures for it, but they're not going to send out the files because they want you to buy it from them.
Yeah.
So so I'm real. I don't know if you can see, but I'm really impressed with like the detail.
Yeah, it looks great.
they did a really good job. This I just went to Thingiverse and I got the ultimate nullifier,
Yeah, that's
and
great.
it was all printed. I put it in the alcohol. I sanded it out a couple pieces and then promptly dropped it and broke this. But it seems to it glues really good with some crazy glue. So
Yeah, that's the other thing too about resin is
it's
it can
very
get it's really fragile, but you can get really thin resin and sharp resin. But man, it's fragile. You manhandle it the wrong way, and it's completely busted. What actually brings me back to the board game thing. It's like there is everything available to do your own board games now, including the 3D printing. Make your own miniatures, make your own
yep.
cards, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then you could go to a tabletop simulator and make your game and then play it virtually, and then you could have like thousands of play testers.
Oh, I
You
don't
know
know
what I mean?
about that.
So yeah, it's called Tabletop Simulator, and there's a lot of people that are board game designers that are they'll put like a virtual simulacrum of their game, and then people play it. And okay, this doesn't work, this card doesn't work, and you'll get like thousands, because some people just, oh wow, there's new board games, especially if you're a famous designer, they want to.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and
The
then
thing about board games that I find interesting, because I do games for work sometimes, but for fun as well, is the overlap. Like some of the mechanics for like video games kind of got ported over to board games, and then some of the mechanics for board games got like ported back over to video games, and it's kind of interesting what works on what side.
yeah, there's I think I find that board games and comics, there's a lot of overlap in the fans. And I'm not talking about video game. I'm not really a video game. I play I play Civilization, and that's all I play. And I'm addicted to that. I bought that Red Dead Redemption on I forget, I'm looking at it. I can't even tell you which console. And I got that motion sickness, and I never played it.
Yeah, those are tough. I make video games, so I have to kind of keep up to them, but I don't really play them. I have played some in the past, though, for sure.
No, what games have you worked on?
I mean, nothing. The games that I work on are for clients, so it's not like it's not a AAA game company. It's going to be, a pharmaceutical company needs a game for a trade show for a weekend. So that's what I'll do, or, something like that. So it's nothing famous, but, I still do the mechanics and the inventories and all that kind of stuff.
Which is changing the. I sent out a link to a bunch of people responding that they can't come, bad timing. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure, why would you know? Fabrizio and I have been trying to get to talk live on the one of our channels for the longest time, and it's just not working.
Yeah, it gets kind of tough.
I was given in my business, we have up to 12 weeks furlough where you just don't work. It's construction. Wow. So if things are slow, they give you time off. And it's better than being fired and rehired. So,
yeah,
if your boss is cool, you could request times off, and then so we have 12 weeks. So I have a couple of weeks requested, and then a couple of weeks they just say you're off. So these 2 weeks I had no idea I was off. So I went to my brother's house. He just moved up to Connecticut. I went to go visit at the spur of the moment. Oh my God, I could have stayed up. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but it just stuck in my head. Where I live, where we grew up, he bought a house like a couple of blocks away from my parents' house. And he bought his tiny little house. He dormered it. He put extensions. We're all construction workers. We're all pretty handy. And he's been fixing this house for 30 years. He's finally done with it. His kids moved out. And he said, I'm going to go buy a house somewhere, or he's retired. I'm not tied to Manhattan anymore. So he gets this house in Connecticut. He sold his house for $450,000 and then bought the new house, which is like a mansion, for $300,000. So he paid for it in cash. He has a little nest egg, and the guy who built that house was a contractor. So the house is immaculate. He said all he did was paint the main bedroom. Everything else, so he was sending me pictures. I thought it was a resort. It's got a pool. It's got a pool house. It's got 2 garages. Oh my God! So of course, whenever I go to somebody's house, I'm like, oh, if I had this house, I would do this. If I had this house, so we're in this basement. I'm like, this would be where I put all my comic books. And then we turn around. It's like C shaped. So we're in the main area. I'm like, this would be like a board game area. Over here, put the comic books. Over here, I'd put, because I still have toys and bins that I can't display. My house is too small. And then we turn the corner, and there's twice as much room. And he goes, I don't even know what to do with this. It's he's got pool tables and stuff. And then we go upstairs to the second floor. He's got a main bedroom with the bathroom, and then like a little area where you could read, like with a bookshelf built into the wall. And then over here, there's an attic, and it's got like a little door. You go into the attic, and there's a little tunnel. And above the garage, there's a huge unused room that like there's no floors in, so you'd fall through. He goes, but I could put floors down and make like an apartment for that, like a family could live in. I'm like, oh, he's got more. I just think it's funny. Once you get out of New York, you can get a huge house. It's got a built-in pool. Oh man, I felt like I was at a resort. So
man, Connecticut. I don't think I've ever been to Connecticut. The house prices in Pittsburgh are not great, though, for sure. You're not going to get a mansion for that kind of money.
Well, it's not a mansion. I know. I just call it a mansion. But and it's funny because the people in the neighborhood are like, "Oh, you bought the $1 million house," and he's just like, $1 million house. He's like, "You couldn't even get a garage for what I paid for this house." On Long Island.
Yeah. Speaking of comics, man, that is the one thing that I not regret, but I have a very limited space for my comics, so I can only grow as much space as I have. So I have to sell or get rid of, and I can't buy more comics.
I believe it or not, I'm hitting the limit. And I'm afraid because I got stacks on the floor, and I'm afraid like it's only a matter of time before some water seeps in. So I want to lift up. So I'm going to lose a whole layer of comics, and then I'll have no more room. I don't want to start selling comics. What am I going to do?
I know. I still regret, like in the 80s, mid 80s, or more like late 80s, I did sell some comics, unfortunately, and I regret every single one of those purchases now, every single one of them. And I'll see them pop up. I'm like, I used to own that, and I got to go rebuy it now.
I don't know what it was. I think it was going into ninth grade, the summer of ninth grade. I was just like, I remember having like an existential crisis that I couldn't play with toys anymore. Like, and I would pick them up and hold them in my hand. I'm like, I have no desire to play these. And it bothered me. And then I was like, well, I guess I don't collect comic books anymore. And I sold all my John Byrne X-Men.
Oh man.
And I don't even know if I made any money. I don't remember. And then, of course, I had to go rebuy them again.
It hurts. That hurts so much, especially now. Good Lord.
Yeah.
You're going to pay for a ton. I saw that Dan Green died today.
Oh, I know.
He is, for my money, one of like the top 3 inkers. Like when I'm inking, I think about Dan Green because not that we have similar inking styles, but he uses a brush and he's not real particular. It's really like he gets in there and he puts some lines that aren't, but it just has so much energy to it. I wish I could ink like him.
Yeah, I remember his. I could think of, close my eyes and I could see his. I guess scratchy, is that the right word? Like it's like a very scratchy art style. Like yeah, and I'm trying to. He worked with Silvestri a lot.
Yeah,
and John Romita Jr. I think he was. And then he did pencils on X-Men by him. Like he was the penciler and inker for a while, if I remember.
Yeah, I don't know if he did work with John Romita. I don't know. But definitely the Silvestri stuff is Silvestri's best work for me. Like after Dan Green wasn't inking him, I sort of lost interest in his darkness and all that kind of stuff.
So you've left comics because the artist quit? Or moved on,
I would always give people a chance, after I saw a big change in the art or the writing, I'm like, I'll hang on for a little bit. Eventually I just lost interest and would definitely leave the series.
Because I remember when Walt Simonson's Thor, when Walt Simonson started drawing it and it was Sal Buscema, I think I lasted like 9 issues before I was like, it's not the same. I don't like it anymore. And then of course I go back and bought those issues, but I'll quit over a writer. In
Yeah.
Harley.
Yeah, when I go back, it's funny because I'll pull out old issues of stuff in my head. I'm like, oh, that's Ron Friends, and I'm like, oh crap, that's not Ron Friends. That so like
We
when I was
Mandela affect ourselves.
yeah, like when I was reading it at the time, maybe I don't think I was as aware of artists and writers. It's only like later I'm like, oh, it like all of my favorite issues are written by Claremont, and all of my favorite artist or series are this.
It's funny. I remember just like Claremont could do no wrong up until like I think like around X-Men 150 or so, and then after that, I just remember like I was getting more and more and more frustrated with them to the point where I quit the X-Men. Like a rage quit. 204 was my last issue of the X-Men, and then I bought them in garage sales and things. So I think I'm up to issue 400, but monthly buying them religiously.
Wow.
I stopped at 200, and I looking back at this, like since I started doing my channel, I've been more critical about comic books, especially when I showcase them for my channel. And I started to realize, I think John Byrne's influence, I wonder, was it like Jim Shooter or was it John Byrne? Because when John Byrne left, I thought even the writing changed. Like the X-Men became like whiny, oh, everybody just, like I remember like one of the very first times I think they were going to get Rogue. Rogue ran away or something like that. She was having like one of those emotional and given her powers, you can understand it. So they're going to get Rogue before she does something stupid. And they're literally saying, they don't give Rogue a fair shake because of her powers, and she's just like everybody else. We just want to be treated. This is the lecture and they're in a car and they're speeding, and the cops pull them over, and Cyclops blows up the cop's car with his eye beams. And keeps on going. And then I'm like, didn't you just say you want to be treated like everybody else? I can't blow up the cops because my friend is drinking and driving, you know what I mean? Or my friend's going out with the wrong guy or something. I was like, even as a kid, I was like, this is just, so I wrote this. I got to edit it. I wrote like 25 years ago, I wrote an essay called The X-Men Deserve Persecution. And I put it on all these X-Men websites, and a lot of people laughed and a lot of people got mad at me, and every once in a while, I'll see somebody like, you're the guy who wrote the X-Men Deserve Persecution.
That is awesome.
And it's not because they're mutants. It's because of the way they behave. And the final straw was X-Men 200. When they capture Magneto, Magneto's going before the UN, the World Court for Crimes Against Humanity, and the X-Men break in, they capture Magneto, they say he's not going to get a fair shake, but we just want to be treated like everybody else,
Yeah,
he's at court.
I would love to read that. It's funny you mention that. I guess I never really thought about it, but you're absolutely right. They were just kind of whiny, and the constant like Magneto back and forth thing. Oh, he's great. We love him. He'll lead the X-Men. No, right. Is he? Would you do that with anybody else?
Right. Can I take Osama bin Laden and have him? He's going to be in my game club. He's sorry. He's sorry.
Exactly.
He's sorry. Matter of fact, he's going to be the one who picks out the games every week because he's sorry. And then when he gets arrested, I'm going to go and break him out because Osama bin Laden can't get a fair trial in New York. It's nobody would take me seriously.
Yeah, and I know.
And then Jeffrey Dahmer, I'm going to go and I'm going to harbor him in my basement. Because he's not going to be treated properly. That's Sabretooth. Sabretooth was a cannibal.
I was just going to say Sabretooth.
You know what I mean? That's what the X-Men did,
I mean, Sabretooth, he really became like a hero for a while. Like he even had his miniseries, and I didn't read much of that stuff, but I remember picking up some issues where I'm like, oh, Sabretooth is just like a part of the X-Men. Didn't he kill Wolverine's?
Yeah, didn't he eat people? Wasn't there bones? And like he like sexually assaulted Psylocke when he, because she would go down there and telepathically calm him down, and like when she touched him, he like grabbed her and felt her up, and you know what I mean, and then forced her to do her magic on him, and and then he escaped anyway. It's just like you X-Men, you're stupid. First off, you have Magneto, and then they retconned it with Magneto, like he was tricking him because he wanted to steal all the Shi'ar technology, which, all right, that just makes the X-Men stupid, not morally bad. But I don't know. I really think that Claremont really wanted Magneto to become good, but he crossed the line. He at least he has to go to jail and spend time behind bars.
Yeah, there has to be some sort of like a real redemption arc,
Right.
not just, well, he plays well. We like the
We like him.
anti-heroes, Wolverine does well, so let's make Sabretooth a good guy. And
Yeah, we like, Venom, the
yeah,
same thing. Oh, there was another one that I thought of, and then it just escaped my mind. But and then Cyclops. I'm just gonna. Oh, Jean Grey's alive. Bye bye kids. Bye bye wife.
yeah.
I'm gonna abandon my wife and child for go back to my high school sweetheart. If I left my wife and my high school sweetheart, nobody in my family would stick up for me.
Yeah, that is true.
And I think that's why they made Madeline Pryor the Goblin Queen, to absolve Scott Summers.
Yeah, the Inferno.
Yeah, like she was messing with his mind. The child didn't really exist, because they realized how bad it made him look,
Man, I haven't reread some of those in
Mark
a
Maia
long
is here.
time.
Mark showed up. Okay.
Oh, well, I'll drop off then. Awesome.
No, you don't have to drop off. You're here. All three of us.
Okay.
Can you guys see me?
Hey, Mark, how you doing? We're live.
Sorry. My bad. I just read back all the. Let me get in the studio. I literally just read back all the messages, and they all said tomorrow, Tuesday. In my head, I was like, yeah, the 23rd, which is Wednesday.
I figured. I knew you were a good guy. I figured. I thought you were going to be an hour off, and then at 8:00, because I figured you're in London, Ontario.
No. So, yeah, I'm London, Ontario, and sorry, I'm trying to find we're doing this on the fly here. I'm trying to find my little stand. Aha, got it. So I can sit in my studio.
Okay, you're jumping around, so I'm going to put you on pause until you all set up and bring you back. Okay. Oh, there you go.
All right.
Because you're giving me motion.
Well,
all right. So Mark, this is Fabrizio Aiello. He jumped in, and we were talking. He's the writer artist of Horace H. Hoover, an alternate comic that I just absolutely love. I got issue number 1, and I'm chomping at the bit for the conclusion of the story. I think it's a great story. So this is Mark Maia. Mark Maia is the owner operator of Boardgame Coffee, a channel that talks about board games. But you also have a comic coming out, so I thought it would be.
I do. I have the comic I have coming out. Hold on, don't get motion sickness.
Okay.
I'm ready to go sit down in the studio properly now.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, it's a little crooked. I'll fix that up. All right. So, anyways, yeah, I have a comic called So-Called Living that's coming out. I just gave the first issue away free. It's free on digital.
The link is in the description.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, currently it's available on what's it called? Global Comics, and I put it up on Webtoon, but I'm not sure I actually put it up correctly. So I gotta go check that.
Barely know how to live chat.
So that's new because we got a Kickstarter coming out for So-Called Living in November, hopefully.
Are you the writer? Are you the artist? Did you do everything, or?
No, I'm the writer of So-Called Living, and I wrote it 14 years ago, and then I've had multiple artists on it, and they just kept falling off because at that point, I was treating it as though I was like, hey, let's do a partnership. I'll be the writer, you be the artist. I'll pay all the upfront costs to get things done, as in printing or whatever that excess cost, and then. Once we start making money on this thing, I'll pay myself back. But before I get any money for myself, you'll get the first whatever percentage, or not percentage, but like we'll hit a number like $2,000, whatever, $5,000. We say the first $5,000 that comes in is all for you, if it even makes that. But like I don't care. I just wanted to get the book out, right? So and that was the deal I made with a lot of artists. I tried to make a bunch of different deals because like I couldn't afford to pay an artist at the time, right?
Yeah, I'm working on a comic now, and the guy gave me a page rate. So I said, let me save up for a full book, and then if my oil burner doesn't crap out, I'll have the money and I'll pay. So that's how we're doing.
That's what that's what I ended up doing now, was because, like I said, I had a few people come off. I was really excited to work with them, but I get it. Like, they work full time as artists. They're excellent artists.
This is their job.
They don't want to. Yeah, they don't want to come home and be like, I'm doing this again. I'm just doing this all day, and they get kind of tired of it, right? And because not everybody is willing to commit that much of their free time to another project, especially when you got a good job and you're living okay, and you're like, I don't really need to be doing this. I could be at the movies. I could be Netflixing and chilling. So, and that's just like, I get it. So I never held it against them. I was like, all right, I understand. And but since it was always my story, like, I was always the one that wrote it on my own. I just kept the rights to everything, so it's still all mine. And 14 years later, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go this different way. I took the Bon Jovi method. Not everybody in the band is an equal member. Basically, it's Bon Jovi, and he pays everybody else. So that's what I took, the Bon Jovi approach. It was like, all right, then. I contacted a lawyer. I got a bunch of contracts made up. So whichever artist I'm working with, the characters you create are my characters. Like, you are creating my characters based on my concepts. Like, I don't need you to come. I was like, I'll tell you exactly what this guy's going to be like. I'll give you references.
So you give them a full script for them to follow.
Yeah, full script. I break down every page. So I was like, I'll take as much work off your plate as I can as the writer. So I'll just script. And, like, I do want to see some creativity from the artist as well. But I find that not all artists are
on the page. It's gonna be filtered through somebody else's talent, and
yeah. So, and I find there's a few different artists. I've worked with artists where they want me to tell them exactly what's in that panel, and I've worked with other artists where they just want a general direction. But if you're not, I know some guys are good with sequential art if they're guided, but others that they're not very good at the storytelling element or the slight nuances of, like, facial expressions or body language. So I try to walk them through as much as possible, and I don't hold that against them. Everybody's got their different skills. And Marco, the artist I'm working with, he is a very talented artist, and I met him through channels. We can get to that later if you're curious. But he's in Italy, and he had a page rate that I could afford. So, because all the artists I know here are fairly established, either in the video game industry
I couldn't
or
afford Fabrizio. This guy's too talented for me.
So basically, I couldn't afford them. I couldn't afford them. Like, guys asking for a minimum $500 a page for the guys I know, because that's how much they're getting paid. Like, they're making good money doing what they're doing. They don't need to be making my comic. So. And I have access to these artists because I've worked 23 years in the video game industry as a creative director, and a lot of my job was because I also was the art director. A lot of my work was hiring artists, working with artists, going to school, talking to artists, connecting artists. So I have a huge portfolio, like a huge connection to artists in general, the artist community. But they're all well established, so, and I don't expect them to do me any favors. As far as, like, do a free comic book for me. Like, I want to pay them, but I was like, I understand. I can't afford you. No hard feelings. I get it. Sorry, I was rambling there. I came out cannons hot.
Yeah. Well, Fabrizio is a writer, artist, inker, colorer of his own comic. So, and you also do video games during the day. So you guys are got a lot in common. But
that makes things a lot cheaper, eh? Good for you.
First off, Fabrizio's comic is wonderful. Horace H. And I keep saying Hoover, but it's Horace. Yeah, Horace H. Hoover. I actually said it right, and I thought I was wrong. Great comic.
Is the link in the description?
Yeah, I'll put a link in the description because Fabrizio came on at the last minute because we thought you had a
because you thought I was missing. I
went to the hospital, so I thought I was putting people in hospitals. So I've been having problems. But anyway, let's start all over again. This is Mark Maia of Board Game Coffee. This is Fabrizio Aiello of Alterna Comics, Horace H. Hoover, and I'm John from John's Long Box. And Mark, I don't know if you remember, but I've been commenting on your videos for a couple of years. John Bua is my name, so it's been Jay Bua, and I'm the one on your Christmas special who asked for a kiss from Brittany. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah, I mentioned that to Brittany. I remember. Brittany remembers it.
Brittany
remembers it. Yeah. So because I mentioned it, she's like, "Oh yeah." Oh, she said, "Say hi."
Yeah. So that's funny. So I thought that, I was like, "Oh well, he might remember me," and it's a good way to open the door to invite you on the channel. So I guess you remembered me. So you're going to kickstart your own comic on Kickstarter.
Yeah, in November, so I'm learning all that from scratch. Sorry?
When is that campaign going live?
Hopefully November.
Oh, okay. I thought it was sooner than that. Okay, hopefully November. Okay.
No, yeah, I'm hoping for November. I'm trying to take some time to, because I'm in the video game community, I'm in the board game community, but I'm not in the comic book community. So I'm trying to get to know the comic book community, and I'm taking that time to kind of like get people to know who I am too by putting my book out free digitally.
Yeah.
And
so
and just kind of just dive in.
So
Sorry,
your book,
go ahead.
Your book is complete then.
The well, it's going to be an 8. Sorry, it's going to be an 8-issue series. It might be maybe 9. It depends. The last issue is still in script format, and I have to kind of block it out to see if it's going to condense into one book or 2. So, but currently I've got up to book 6 written. So, like as a clean script, I have up to the final story written. But as far as clean script go, I have 6 books written. The Kickstarter is going to be issues 1 and 2, so you'll buy them as a set. Okay. So think of it, this digital copies is like a sneak peek, and then if the Kickstarter is successful, then I can continue making the others, because I can tell you right now I cannot.
Yeah, Fabrizio could tell you the trials and tribulations of getting your own comic out there. Yeah. You know, I'm sure you haven't seen it. I don't know if you've seen it, Fabrizio, but I had Luke Stone on last week. He's the owner operator of Fund My Comic. It's a crowdfunding just for comic books. I wanted to talk to him, and he was telling me about like they'll offer services of like helping you get digital files prepared, putting you in contact with inkers and even contracts. You know, so he's trying to compete with Kickstarter in Indiegogo. So he's going above him, and he specializes just in comics. And I got to say, I've backed a couple of things on it, and I'm very happy with. So that's when I'm ready to go. I'm probably going to go with Fund My Comic. There's a commercial for Luke Stone because he's a good guy.
And how popular is Fund My Comic right now? I've never heard of it.
It's only 6 months, so he's actively going on everybody's channels and talking, and everybody seems to be pretty happy with. He's a computer programmer, and he started they started his website, and you could go there, and he's like accessible 24 hours a day, and you could message him, and he'll give you, you know, you can work with this guy. Okay, this guy's an editor, this guy's an inker who's looking for work, this guy's a letterer who's looking for work, you know. And I need that. I need somebody to hold my hand, so you know, because I've never used Kickstarter, but you know, it's just you go on Kickstarter, and it's like a baby bird. You're thrown out, you either fly or fall off the tree. It's up to you, you know.
Well,
I get nothing from him. I get nothing from him. I just like the guy.
If we're talking about like as far as like a writer going out on his own who's not doing all the work, good on you. I found it again. Artist was my biggest thing to look for. But in the Facebook channels, I actually bumped into a conversation, and it was, I can't remember who it was, but they were saying, I paid an artist to do my comic. He did half of the comic, and then I paid him for the whole thing, and he took off.
Right. Yeah. I've been hearing that. One of my buddies just paid for somebody to do a poster for his Kickstarter. It's on Indiegogo. Guy took the money, and he's never heard from him. It's more common than I think. You got to, you know. So Fabrizio, like if somebody was, I know you're doing your own thing, but if someone was to hire you, what would you do? Like 3 pages then pay, 2 pages then pay, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would depend. If it's an entire issue, I would want to do it in chunks. So I don't know about 3 issues or 3 pages, but maybe 4, 5 pages, and then get paid.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I can see people bailing
Oh,
100%. I mean,
yeah.
it's kind of the wild, wild west. Unless somebody's very like established and they have books they've put out, you know, just handing
Yeah.
them some money and just because. And the other thing too is whatever they give you for samples. You know, if they're just giving you splash pages or posters, no sequential art, you know, finished published books, then it gets a little iffy, I think.
I hired one guy to edit, and he was like $100 for a down payment, and I'll edit. And then he took off. Luckily, it was PayPal, and I was able to get the money back. So it happened to me.
Yeah.
So and my buddy Mike has been working with the guy for 4 years, but the guy will leave and go work for Marvel. You know what I mean? And then come back. So it's been taking him 4 years to get the art for one comic, but he doesn't want to change artists. He doesn't want it to look different. He doesn't want to start from scratch. You're this. What is that? The sunken cost fallacy. He paid a little bit. So welcome, Mark. I hope we're not discouraging you and scaring you.
No.
So Mark,
no,
what's the
not at all.
premise of your book?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
The premise of So-Called Living is basically it takes place in a world where everything, like all the supernatural creatures exist, like vampires, werewolves, zombies, humans. They all live together, but it's not a fantasy world. It's just like you're going outside and going on the bus now. And some of those people are vampires, some of them are werewolves.
Okay.
And the relationship between people and these other creatures is normally civil. Everybody's mixed in, so it's been the way it's like our society is now. But instead of dealing with there are some situations that I have planned for later issues, but if there's ever any tension between like what we would have like a racial tensions in some situations, there would be tensions between like this person doesn't like vampires or they don't like werewolves or they don't like that type of deal. So there's like certain stereotypes that are attached to those creatures that they might like or not like or be good or like some are bad. But everybody kind of lives together. But it's a dark comedy. So that's the world it's set in. But it's a dark comedy, and it revolves around a character named Jack. And in the first issue, I'll tell you that he gets turned into a vampire in the first issue. And then from that point on, it's him learning to live his life as a vampire. So he's in shenanigans. He's got friends that are helping him out. But he's in more trouble than he thinks he is. And you find that out as the story goes. And because there's this whole plot line that's happening in the first few issues, is happening behind him. And he has no idea this is going on. So he's kind of bumbling around his life. Yeah, so he's kind of bumbling around his life, trying to like his first issue is the first problem he has is he can't get into his apartment because no vampires. He has to be invited in, so he's like, I'm screwed now. I can't get into my own apartment. And that's his first issue. So it's
and this whole first issue is because I put your link in the description. People could go on it, click on it, read your whole first issue.
Yeah, the whole complete first issue is in there. So I don't want to say too much more about the comic, not to give it away.
Yeah, you don't want to give it away, but you got to give people a taste. There you go.
So that's the taste, and it's kind of a dark humor. So it is sarcastic.
It would be funny if you're prejudiced against vampires, and then he becomes a vampire.
if you're worried about if you're sensitive to swearing, then you definitely don't want to, because there's definitely swearing in this. There is like death, but there's no gore. It's like we handle I guess handle any sort of violence almost like it kind of happens off screen, so you're never really happy. You don't see people getting eviscerated and just disgusting blood. It's all very still visually friendly,
like
but
PG-13.
Yeah, but a lot of swearing though. So there's a few F-bombs.
Okay.
So It's going to get the rated R rating just for language.
Okay. Okay. So like a urban fantasy comedy. That's pretty cool. That sounds pretty cool.
And the language is based on the characters, because each character has their own personality. So some characters are more prone to swearing than others.
And you said you have 8 issues. Is it a definite final, or let's say it's a smash hit? You could keep going.
Yeah, it could keep going. 8 issues is going to wrap up this storyline, but I'm dropping little seeds of elements that could expand. That I already have planned for other characters.
Cool.
That I'm dropping seeds in there, and like at the end of the first issue, this is not a spoiler or anything, but you'll see. I can't remember exactly what it says. Something about like the ninja. Oh, you guys cut out for me for a second. It says like the ninja strikes again or something like that, and there's going to be like a ninja character. Like it's but it's going to be different than your typical ninja character. It's going to like
okay.
So anyways, I want to see more about that. But that's not going to be in any of these 8 issues, but I'm planting the seeds now. There's characters you'll see now that you'll never see again until after those 8 issues, but it'll tie back into what happens in this story. So I do want to plan to keep going on with it.
Cool. So, that sounds fun. And so that'll go live in November. I'll definitely throw out a couple of links for you and help out in any way you can. I think it's exciting for people to make their own. I think we're going through a comic book golden age right now. You know, we got guys like Fabrizio making their own comics. I've been talking to almost every week, people have been jumping on who are making their own comics. I think it's so much fun. Fabrizio, you probably don't know this, but Mark is such an X-Men fan. What did you name your son?
Xavier.
Right. Wow. We were talking about the X-Men before you came on.
Yeah, so he's Xavier. So I'm a comic book fan in general. Marvel is more Marvel than DC.
Once I saw that you named your son Xavier, I was like, this guy's not a poser. He knows his stuff. What did you grow up reading besides the X-Men? Obviously.
The comic book that really pulled me in, because I remember when I was really young, I was always interested in comics. As far as like I watched the cartoons, like the old 1960s whatever or 70s, whatever that cartoon came out, the Spider-Man one that was done in Toronto.
Oh yeah,
it's like the classic everybody knows.
The Ralph Bakshi Spider-Man.
Yeah, so I watched, and like I used to watch. There was old X-Men cartoons where Wolverine had like an Australian accent. It was bizarre, but I used to love all those things. And when I tried to get into comic books, I remember I didn't know what to buy because I was a little kid. So I was like, Daredevil looked cool. There was this cover of like Typhoid Mary basically straddling Daredevil. She's about to kill him. I was like, I'll try this. And as a kid, I read it, and I was like, not for me. So I was like, I don't get it. Like it was too mature for me. But then, so I put comic books away for a bit. But I still bought the toys. I watched the cartoons, and then when I was like 15, I bought Torment. Was just released. I think it was Torment. I think I was 15. The age might be off,
right.
But whenever Spider-Man Torment came on, that's when I.
Okay. I thought Torment was the name of the comic. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
No, it was Spider-Man. The Torment was a McFarlane line. I think it was when he started Spider-Man like #1. It was like the Spider-Man title.
Yeah.
So it was when he was drawing it, and he did Spider-Man #1 in the first issue. The first storyline was called Torment. And I believe it was like Calypso was controlling the lizard or something like that. Can't remember the storyline exactly. But that's what got me into comics big time. I read that and I was like, I love this. And then I went and I started buying everything. And I started going to the flea markets and finding quarter bins. And I bought old Superman issues and old Spider-Man issues and old Batman issues. I buy old stories. So I was like, this looks.
So you were a Marvel and a DC guy? You weren't divided into camps?
I just read anything that's good. Like, granted, I've read more positive. I have more positive reviews on Marvel stories than I do DC stories. But I'd like to say I'm pretty even. Like, some of my favorite stories, I say most of the comics I'm reading now are Marvel. I find DC has a certain routine they're kind of locked into, and now they're trying to overcompensate. I don't know, like with some stories. Again, I could be reading the wrong ones, right? Because not every Spider-Man issue is gold.
Right.
But I just find, for me, the tone and the pace of the books, I'm more of a Marvel guy. but
Okay.
then DC put something out like what was the one called? It was I can't remember. It was a mystery. One of the it's like one of the wives were killed. I think it was Elongated Man's wife was killed. It was like
Oh yeah,
Identity
yeah.
Crisis.
Identity Crisis.
Yeah.
That was an amazing story.
Yeah,
That's one of my favorites.
My favorite thing in Identity Crisis is they all get together, they all huddle up, and they're like, okay, you got to go here, Batman. You do this, you bat that, and then they all leave, and then they all come back once Batman leaves. They go, we got to get sued. We got to get the Dr. Light. Like they knew exactly what happened. They just needed Batman to leave, and I was like, oh my god, something's going on. This is cool. Like we needed to get Batman out of here, and then they found out that they tampered with Batman's mind. I thought that was a shocking comic, and it just showed you, like Batman is the one guy you can't let him in. He's absolute justice. He's going to mess with them in a certain way. I thought that was good. That was a good comic. He just brought back a good memory.
Yeah, that was if anybody hasn't read Identity Crisis,
Yeah,
I think if you're not a huge Capes fan, like superhero comics, I think you should give Identity Crisis a try. It's got a different flavor.
Meanwhile, you bailed on Typhoid Mary for being too serious as a kid.
Well,
I'm an adult now.
No, I know, but it's ironic that.
Yeah, but because like I say, some of my favorite comics aren't either. Like I love Lock and Key. Like Lock and Key is one of my favorite comics. So I was really happy when they made the show, but I didn't fall in love with the show. Yeah. But I also like Walking Dead and Invincible.
I'm a Robert Kirkman unabashed fanboy. Anything Robert Kirkman does, Invincible is awesome. Even the cartoon is good.
I haven't seen the cartoon yet because I'm a bit of a completionist, and I did this for Walking Dead and Invincible. I did the same thing. I got into Walking Dead a little late, like 30 issues in or something like that, 20 issues in, and then I just crushed those issues.
Oh, we lost you.
Sorry, somebody was trying to call me. Then I just crushed those issues in one sitting, and I was like, well, I got to get more. And then I was catching up to it too fast. So I was like, I'm going to sit back, read something else, come back, and there's like 10 issues in the clip, and read them again. So I kept doing that for Walking Dead. And for Invincible, I did that as well. And I never went back. It was just a long gap if I just never went back. And then I kind of forgot about it. Got into other things, and then now the cartoon's out. So I was like, I can't watch the cartoon. I got to finish reading the series. I got to get caught up to where I am, or to where I got to go back to where I left off and continue from there.
Invincible ends well, and the cartoon, it's compressing it. Like a lot of things that happen a little too fast, but they're doing it. I think they just wanted to make sure the audience gets roped in with the twists and everything like that. Like in the comic, it took like almost a year before the big twist, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody who didn't. But in the cartoon, the big twist happens halfway through the first episode. Yeah.
So, well, that's pretty quick. But yeah, again, comic book fans, you should read Invincible if you haven't already.
Yeah, Robert Kirkman. He has a comic called Die 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 right now, and it's 4 twin brothers or assassins named after the Beatles. These guy's out of his mind. He makes such good fun comics. Again, you read Horace H. Hoover over here, Fabrizio's comic. If it's occult investigations, and you see how normal he looks with that smile. This guy's out of his freaking mind. I can't figure out where his comic is going. So, and I absolutely love it.
Just find a random story generator. That's all I'm doing.
Chat GPT, write me a comic book.
Okay,
exactly.
Since you named your child Xavier, we were talking right before you came in that years ago I wrote an essay and I put it on chat rooms in X-Men chat rooms called "The X-Men Deserve Persecution," and it was just listing all the things that the X-Men did that caused problems. Like they housed Sabretooth, a serial killer. They put him in the basement. Then he escapes and kills other people. They housed Magneto, a mass terrorist who killed people, put him on charge of the team. And then when Magneto was going on trial, they broke him out of trial. And then they're going, yeah, but we just want to be treated like everybody else. And I just remember writing this article like, guys, nobody cares that they're mutants. People just don't like the X-Men because they're jerks. And I remember people were sending me angry letters. They wanted to beat me up.
Well, they've kicked it up a notch now. If you're reading the current stuff, with the whole Hellfire Gala storyline going on, which I think is really good. Actually, I
Man,
really enjoy it.
I know. I look at the Hellfire Club. They're like the Epsteins of the comic book world. You know, if you read the Chris Claremont Hellfire Clubs, they were bad people, and now they're having to help. So I actually wrote another article called how to fix the X-Men, and you know, but whatever. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I think they crossed the line into villainy, and I think they're kind of addressing it in Marvel right now. The last couple of issues of the Fall of the X-Men. Have you been reading that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing a good job of realizing, maybe we went a little too far. I still hope and pray that they're going to crack open Krakoa and they're going to find all the original X-Men buried, and these were just plant simulacrums that have their programming went nuts. And
Secret Invasion all over again.
Yeah. So you're still reading new Marvel, new DC?
I just recently got back into it because I was buying digital for a while because I have too many comic books in the house.
Okay.
Like clearly you guys know how long a full bin is. Comics. I have
behind this world there's a room with 55,000 comics in it.
Yeah, so I've got like in my bedroom I have 42 bins.
Yeah.
So 42 full-length bins in my bedroom. So I was like, I gotta stop buying comics, and then I bought them digitally. So on top of that, on my iPad, I have lots. So my Comixology account's got lots. I've got DC Unlimited or Marvel Unlimited. I got both of those. I forget what they're all called. One of them's Unlimited. I think it's Marvel Unlimited. I'm not sure what the DC one's called. Whatever. I got subscriptions to both of those, as well as I buy them on Comixology. But when it came to doing so-called living, I felt like I wanted to get back to my roots of get back into my fanboy comic book roots, where I just loved comics and actually having them in my hands. So I started going back to the comic book store every Wednesday.
Yeah.
And
getting better than a comic in your hand, just a comic in your hand to read.
So I'm getting back into that, and it just felt good. I felt like I was going back to old me. I felt like I got lost of like that comic book part of me kind of got lost when I got mixed up in with just the video game world. There's just a lot of work, there was a lot of work, obviously. And then because a bit of a perfectionist, if we were doing any sort of game that was like something else, that's all I would do is play that type of thing. Or if I had an idea for a game, I'd play something else. Even if there's a mechanic in it, that's nothing like the game we're doing, but I want to see how it works. I want to see why they're doing things, or I want to see how the user interface is used. I want to see how menus are done. Like I would play games for all kinds of reasons, just to study them. Or games with good stories. If I was writing a story, how do they do the story? How do they handle it? How do they do pacing? So I'm big into, I'll research the project I'm doing a lot. So because I'm getting back into writing my own comics, I want to get back into that world. So I'm just diving all in. I'm actually leaving for Fan Expo in Toronto tomorrow.
You're in London, Ontario, right?
Yeah, I'm in London, Ontario.
That's where my wife was from.
Oh yeah, nice. That's where Brittany
raised there and then moved to Winnipeg.
Oh yeah, Brittany's from
here. I asked you about something and I forgot what you want. Hopefully she's watching upstairs and she'll message me.
Well, Brittany was actually born and raised in London, or I was born and raised in Toronto, which is like 2 hours away, and in that direction. So when I go to Fan Expo, I have a lot of family there, so I just have lots of houses to stay. So when people ask, what hotel do you stay at? I was born and raised there, so I always had a home. And then when I go back, my family's huge, and they all have homes, so I'm just with them.
You go to, was that Silver Snail? Is that the name of the big comic store in Toronto?
Silver Snail is a popular one, but I was a 1 Million Comics guy. Actually, not even specifically 1 Million Comics. That's another big one in Toronto. Silver Snail is the one everybody knows. Yeah. 1 Million Comics is also, they're just as big in the comic realm. They don't have as many like sculptures as Silver Snail does. But their cousin, fun fact, cousin of 1 Million Comics, one of the biggest comic book stores in Toronto, he ran I said earlier I used to go to the flea market and go to the bins. He ran the comic book or the flea market location that I went to every Saturday to get my new comics.
Okay.
So it was
I love Toronto. I haven't been. My brother-in-law lives in Toronto, so we go there and visit every once in a while. Once in a blue moon. I wanted to ask you. So you were talking about digital comics, both of you guys. Like I'm going to assume that you like to have a physical comic in your hand. Now, you being in board games, so I imagine reading a digital comic is the same as playing tabletop simulator. You know, there's just something missing. You know, like
well, for me, it's a little different. Like I do prefer a physical comic book. I feel like I enjoy the process more.
right.
But there's benefits to digital because I can take it with me, right? I can download
you
it
take
on my
it with
phone.
you. It's not going to get damaged. It's cheaper.
Yeah. My iPad is first thing I do is I'll load my iPad up, download the stories I want, because if I don't get a signal, then you can't read them.
Right.
But I'll have them on my iPad. I'll have them on my iPhone. So if I'm on my iPhone, I'm doing the guided view. You know, if it's on the iPad, because I have an iPad Pro, so I do the full page view. But the convenience of that you can't overlook, and it's also really good for if I hear about a character and I was like, I don't know when this happened, I want to go back and read that old issue. Before, I used to go to the comic book store, go in the quarter bins, buy those things. But before the internet, I'd open up Wizard magazine and be like, okay, when did the Spider clone first show up?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Ben Reilly died in this issue. So I'd go try to find that, right? And I try to read that story. But now I have like Marvel Unlimited. I just like type, mind you, the search engine's a little poo. Because you type in, Amazing Spider-Man issue 100 and you'll get 50 listings. It's like, okay. So once you find the right one, Google will help you with that. And then so I read that story. And I also, so much potential here. Last thing I'll go on digital comics is so much potential in I was trying to read the Onslaught story arc again because I've read it before, but they're like, oh, here's all the books in the series you need to read.
Jump around from issue to issue.
Like they gathered it on Marvel. I was like, this is awesome. And it's not. It's like 6 books. So I was like, wait a second. There's way more than this. You go to Google and you find a list, and they got 130 books. It's like, read all these.
Yeah, all
That's
the tie-ins.
Because they'll start prepping you for a year in advance of this character took a shit in this issue that ties into this bathroom scene. So they will too far. But if you find your way down the right list on Google, then you have to go back and forth from Google to Marvel Marvel Unlimited, because I find Marvel Unlimited, I think they could do a better job in here's all the books in this storyline. Even if they had to give me I don't need them to give me issues 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of Secret Invasion. I can find those. I don't need that to be in a playlist. That's pretty self-explanatory. What I want is what's all the stories for Secret Invasion? And then just lay it out and put it in order. Read next. And if I don't want to read it, I'll just skip it. But it's easier for me to skip it than it is to go find it and find what's missing.
So let me ask you now. I know for both of you guys are writers too. You're writing your comic. Fabrizio writes. Do you work with editors? Do you have somebody that'll read your script?
Fabrizio?
I'm sorry?
I want to hear from Fabrizio.
Okay.
I definitely have people that read the script. I have some friends that are writers, and that's the first tier kind of editing. And then I do have somebody who I consider to be a pretty good editor. She doesn't overstep her bounds. I think she sort of understands kind of what I'm doing, so she'll give me some critiques on that. I don't have a top tier editor, one that's going to say, get this character out, this arc needs, I don't get any of that kind of stuff for the most part. So I don't know if that's,
do you have a proofreader, somebody who'll correct your spelling or?
Yep. Yeah, I do. She's fantastic. But yeah, as far as editing, I think that's a little tricky depending on what you're doing.
I gave one of my scripts to a friend. She's a PhD psychologist, one of the smartest people in the world, and she just ripped my story apart. I felt like crying. So I don't know if that was good or bad, or if I'm just not ready for it. I will
say this, just to give my opinion on this. You need somebody that knows exactly what you're trying to do, because if not, and they don't understand what you're trying to do, you might get just completely wrong direction. So if you got a really clear vision of what you're trying to do, and the feedback you're getting kind of goes against that, then it's okay to ignore feedback sometimes. So that's all I'll say.
I haven't spoken to this person since. No, I'm just teasing. So, Mark, what do you?
Well, for me, I don't have same thing. I don't have what Fabrizio classified as a top tier editor. I have my Brittany, my wife, and my friend Jess, who's usually on the show as well. They read.
Jess has a fan club, by the way. I don't know if you know this, but Jess has.
I do not.
Oh,
She does not have. Yeah, I didn't know she had a fan club. Interesting. I'll have to look that up. So, anyways, so yeah, Jess reads my scripts a lot, and so does Brittany. And Jess is better at catching any like punctuation issues I might have, but both of them are good at giving me feedback on what they think the story, and like if they didn't understand something. And they're both really good at not changing the way I speak, because I have a certain, I guess, cadence or rhythm to the way I write my scripts and how my characters speak. Like to me, I try to explain to people that don't write as like, it's like writing lyrics to music. There's a certain bounce and rhythm that when people talk, and it might not be proper English because people don't always speak
correct. Yeah.
proper English. So I write that in there. So when the person's speaking, they might say something like, I ain't speak so good or whatever. Like,
it would be weird if everybody spoke in proper English back and forth,
So yeah, but I
speaking differently.
I once wrote a character for a video game script. I can't remember which game it was. And we had a person, they were temporary, worked at the studio, and they were editing my script. They were like, they were just meant to proofread it. It came back, and I was like, what did you do? You're like, that's not proper English. I was like, yeah, I know. It's just normal people speaking.
Right.
And, like not everybody speaks proper English. Most people don't. We're just a bunch of mumbling slobs, just, bumbling our way through life, and we figure it out. Our personalities, people will figure it out. So I guess that was the only one time I've had friction. But anybody who's ever I've gotten
I'm a construction worker, and before I was a construction worker, I was a school teacher. And I had my red marker, and I would grade and rip apart the kids' grammar and stuff. So when I switched careers, I'm in the porta potties, and guys always write their graffiti in the bathroom. So I had a red Sharpie, and I was going around and I was crossing things out, -10 points, correcting their grammar, putting in the apostrophes. And it got to be like a thing. People like, who was that guy? And I was like, I don't know, but he just corrected my. So for like 2 or 3 years on 2 different jobs, people like, there's a guy going around who's correct. And finally I had to admit it was me. So everybody's like, oh man, John's the editor. John's that guy. And I became like this legendary editor of the porta potty editor. So I don't know. That's what I need, a porta potty editor.
So what are you guys reading right now?
Oh, right now I'm reading back issues of the Thunder Agents, some George Perez Thunder Agents. I do a channel where I do a comic book a day, and I just take an old comic book, something, and I do like a 10-minute, usually 20 minutes because I can't stop talking. And I showcase it. So I show it like old Fantastic Fours, old Avengers, and whatever gave me fond memories. I just showcased Fabrizio's comic course, H. Hoover, which is behind me. I don't want to get up and grab it, but I'm reading so many different comics. The Nocturnals, an old Bravura comic. I got stacks and stacks of comics over here. Oh. I didn't even take this out of the plastic yet, but here I'll show this. Alex Ross's Fantastic Four. Yeah, I can't wait to get into that.
Yeah, that looks great.
I had Chuck Dixon on my channel a couple weeks ago, and he recommended this. Every time I talk to Chuck Dixon, it costs me money. Tex Ritter, it's from Italy. Italy, believe it or not, they're doing American Westerns.
Really?
And how's this for a blast from the past? Marvel Warriors of the Shadow Realm from 1974. It was them completely copying Lords of the Rings. So that's what I'm reading right now. I've been as my chair sinks. I've been getting into older and older comics. My newer comics, I'm kind of waiting on. There, Alterna is a company that I buy everything from. That's Fabrizio's company. I get Wolf and Batsy, a werewolf and a vampire in the modern world, going around accidentally killing people and getting in trouble. Horace H. Hoover going around investigating I don't even know what he's investigating at this point.
Thanks.
Your comic is beyond. But that's what I'm reading. What are you reading? I have too much coffee right now. So
Who's answering?
I know what I'm not reading. Comics.
What do you know? What's that?
I have a stack of books next to my nightstand that are not being read,
Yeah.
but in that stack is some pretty old comics, like some of the original Transformers, Sectars, which was a very short-lived little series, which I absolutely
Marvel
love.
Sectars. Yep, I remember that.
Love that.
Was that
So-
Epic Comics? Oh,
No, it was Marvel.
That's Star. That was Star Comics, right?
No, it's straight Marvel.
Okay, I'm wrong.
Yeah, so some just old stuff that I never read.
What about you, Mark? What are you reading?
Me, I'm trying to catch up with the new stuff I got. Like I said, I got back into it, but I've had a few weeks where I've been traveling, so I've missed a few Wednesdays. But they put my books away, so then I go like the next Wednesday and I pick them up, and then so I've been trying to just like, and again with Xavier, we wait till he goes to bed, and then if I don't have anything to do, then I'll go to bed right away, just start flipping through comics, read them, go to sleep. That's the only time I have a chance to read them. So I'm just trying to catch up on the new stuff. And like I haven't broken into the last 2 weeks worth of comics, but I'm really close. I think I'm one issue away from going into my plastic bags from like the last 2 weeks. But then it's gonna get messed up again because I'm going to Fan Expo tomorrow in Toronto, but my comic book store is in London. There's a great comic book store in London, Ontario, by the way. It's called Heroes Comics and Cards. Excellent store. But that's that. So they're gonna another week where they're gonna hold my stuff, and I'll go there next week, pick it up. So I'll be 2 weeks behind again. So I'm just trying to catch up, man.
Well, as long as they hold it, you got your pull list and they hold it for you. So what do? You give them a list and say, hold these comics for me, and they
yeah. And if you get a certain amount, then you get a percentage off. So I'm one issue. Like I just got to put another issue on the list, and I'll get 20% off my purchase. So that's pretty good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, my comic store. I moved into this house 2 years ago, and my comic store that I used to go, it closed. Like everything closed during COVID. It was getting to be a ghost town. I moved out here, and I was just like, I guess there's no comic book stores. And then my wife just gets on the phone and goes, "There's one around the block." So there's a comic book store. I didn't even know that when I moved here. There's a game store. You got to drive, but there's a game store where you could go in and sit down and play games, Brothers Grimm games, and you go in there at any time of day. They got Warhammer going on. Guys are playing Small World. You'd love it, Mark. It's great. And then you go in the other direction, and there's a comic book store. There's the old guy with his cat just sitting there. So I'm happy to find that still going, because my old neighborhood it was tumbleweeds going down. Everything closed. So.
Mark, I wanted to ask you. You said you wrote your story 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Did you write it and put it away? Have you been sort of noodling on it ever since? Written other things?
I crushed it right away. I wrote it right away, and like I said, people kept coming on, artists. So what I did, but the scripts I have are kind of rough. They weren't, because I didn't know how to format them yet. So I basically was like, I want this action to happen. I was really rough, and then I had the dialogue. My dialogue was pretty clean. But it read as just one giant script, no page breaks, no nothing. So recently, then I went back, like just before we watched this, I went back and I cleaned them all up. So I separated it with panel 1, dialogue 1, 2, 3, panel 2, dialogue 4, 5, 6, whatever. So I spent most of my time now just formatting. And there's the odd line that I've changed just because 14 years has changed. Yeah. A lot of things have changed since. But there's the odd line I've changed. But for the most part, it's still the same.
Wow, that's impressive.
So it wasn't something I was noodling around. Although I do have to finish that last book script because it's still a mess. So,
has your writing style changed in 14 years? Like, do you look back at?
It's funny that I was reading some of it, and I read some parts. I was like, "This is pretty good." I was like, I don't think I'm this good now.
Yeah.
So, but no, I guess my writing style stayed pretty similar because I write a lot of the scripts for Boardgame Coffee.
That's right. Yeah, you write as part of your job. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote video game scripts. I wrote Actually, fun fact. I just a little, a cool little factoid. I actually won a BAFTA for 24, the mobile game.
Okay.
Wow, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, 'cause I did the art for this is before iPhone. I did the art for it, I designed it, and I wrote the story for it. And I think IGN, because I did part 1 and 2, and IGN gave one of them a 9 and the other one a 9.2 out of 10.
Cool.
And I won a BAFTA for it. And it's what's cool about it is the one art, and there's 2 comments on 2 articles that I liked. One was IGN said, "This is how you do a mobile. This is how you do a licensed game on a mobile." I was like, "Excellent." The next one, I can't remember who said it, but they gave all the. They said you can tell the writing is from the scribes of 24. I was like, it wasn't. It was me, but I appreciate. Sure, you took the credit away from me, but I appreciate it. I appreciate that you liked it that much.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I didn't get the credit for it. Actually, there was a guy. If you find some articles, I don't mind talking about it because I'm not even full-time video game industry now. I just work contract. But our producer on the project took all the credit for it. He's like, "Yeah, this is a game I always wanted to do." I'm like, what? That's not at all how it happens. You came to us in a panic, and I gave you a game design that it was like, well, that's the only thing we can do. He's like, "Can we do this?" I was like, "Nope." "Can we do this?" "Nope." We can't, because you needed a game in like 4 months.
Let me ask you this about you said your first issue is done now. Is that how you always pictured it? Like, is it different? When you write.
No, I always pictured the style being somewhat like the visual style being like Ramos.
Okay.
So like, because I read a lot of what did he write when I first started, when he was still raw, like Deviate, that comic book. But then he got better because he started doing like
Gen 13.
Yeah, then I think he did Out of This World. Was that him too? I think that might have been still him. But anyways, his style got better, got more refined as the years went by, and I liked it. So that's how I imagined it. And then I got
that's $500 a page.
And then I got together with one of the first artists I was going to do the project with. Again, one of the it's a lot of work, so he didn't keep up with it, and I understand. He said it was too much for me to take on. I'm not going to do it. And I was like, okay. But his artwork is excellent. He's an amazing artist. I'd be lucky to have him, but he just couldn't do it. So his artwork was different. But then I got in my head, it's like, oh, that's how I imagined it. So then I had to get back into you know what? I'm just going to go back to my original plan, and I'm going to find somebody that kind of fits the style I want. So I went through a lot of artists.
Who's your artist now? Let's give it. What's his name?
Marco Leone.
Marco Leone. Cool.
He's in Italy. English is not his first language, so describing some things is interesting because there's certain things that they don't have there. The thing I had the most trouble describing to him was chili fries. So that was difficult.
My last name is Bua, and my friend Mike is making a comic, and one of the characters, he just called him Bua. And apparently, and I don't know what country his artist was from, but apparently that's a dirty word. So what he drew, which was supposed to be me, I'm a little annoyed. And he wrote back, he goes, "The Bua joke was particularly funny." And my buddy Mike is like, that's his name. So I don't know if anybody knows what language my name is an insult.
I can't remember what me and Brittany were doing an episode of. I think it might have been like top 5 competitive games or top 5 cooperative games for couples, something like that. And at some point I was like number 2 or 2. I did something. I was like, number 2.
You insulted all of England.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody was like, that means this. I was like, well, that's I have very specific. And another thing that came up, I don't know if you remember, it was a while ago. It was, I don't go into like board game politics or any politics. People,
and you're smart for doing that.
Yeah, I don't that's not what I read. Like every time I go to look for YouTube channels for articles or for any information about comic books or board games or whatever that is, it's just for information. I want to know how to play. I want to know what books I should read. I want to know what this ruling is. I never be like, oh, have you heard the dirt on this? I've never been into that. So
I've been very drama free in my little corner of the internet, and I'm very happy for that.
Yeah. So I've never had to do it, but there was one thing that came up, it had nothing to do with it, but it was like a picture of a frog. I don't know if you know the story. It was a picture of a frog, but the way his hands were sitting down there, they were like, "Oh, that's the white power symbol," because he doesn't even have this many fingers. It was like this or something. I'm trying to. Because I think that was white power. Like white, is that supposed to be like a W and a P? Or I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know how it goes.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
I don't know how it goes. But the frog was resting his hands like this, and he doesn't even have enough fingers to do it. But somebody was like, "Oh, that's the white power symbol," and then there was this huge thing, and then he got pulled. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I thought that was crazy. I was like, that's just
a lot of people bring their own baggage and stuff, and then unfortunately it drags other people down. Yeah.
I was like, it was interesting. And I found it interesting because I looked it up later. I was like, I don't know what's the white power symbol. And then people were like, I'm not flashing it. I'm just trying to figure it out. I don't even know what it is. It's like this. I don't know if it's this or this. I have no idea. It was like, there's a W. I guess that looks like a B. That's like white power. That's I don't know. Anyway, but what I'm saying is, Brittany was like, she said, you better watch out because the way I show, I do 2 like this, but I always do 3 like this. That's just the way I do 3s. I don't, my fingers hurt holding them like this. So she was like, somebody's going to start saying, you're a white supremacist because I'm always doing number 3. Number 3. Yeah. But that's not the case. That's just the natural.
Another YouTuber that I'm friendly with, something like that happened. He had it was a frog too. So they said it was like Pepe the Frog, which was, I don't even know, some sort of racial thing that the guy was the nicest guy in the world. He was like, I don't know. What's going on? People are getting mad at me. And, it was perfectly innocent. I don't know.
Yeah, I think everybody that's I've ever had like follow the channel that's commented. Like I've never had anybody pick on anything. We've had the odd a-hole everywhere, but I don't have much. Like it's barely anything.
No, right? Your channel is very politically neutral. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I really like you when you and Brittany do your skits. Like you're the bickering couple. Like the Rodney Smith one, congratulations to him. That was hysterical. You did it really. Rodney Smith is a guy who explains board games to people, and he hit a milestone, and Mark and Brittany did a video for him. And that was funny. You guys are the bickering couple. I thought it was funny.
I'm trying to remember that video.
You said something to her, and she goes, "But I don't want to eat the cake. The baby wants to." She was very visibly pregnant. I laughed out loud. He was very funny.
It's for the baby. Yeah. I'm remembering that skit, but I couldn't because we did 2 different skits. One was for Blue Peg, Pink Peg, and the other one was for Rodney. And I can't remember which one was which. Yeah, I think the one where
I saw them both and they're blended in here.
Yeah, I think the cupcake ate because Brittany was pregnant for both of them, and I think for the cupcake one where she said it was for the baby, I think that was Blue Peg, Pink Peg, and the Rodney one was because it was a shorter skit because they wanted something shorter.
Yeah.
So I think I was like, I bowed to her stomach and I was like, we christen this baby Rodney after you, and she's like, no.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Your channel is funny and it's informative. I love your playthroughs. Your brother-in-law Chris is the funniest. The carpenter. He's a construction worker, so of course
he's actually Brittany's cousin.
Oh, so I thought he's Brittany's brother.
No, it's Brittany's cousin. Brittany's brother's been on the show once. We did a live Zombicide playthrough for my birthday a few years ago. And he's just this enormous ball.
Yeah,
bag.
He's the big guy. Yeah. I got it mixed up. Yeah, I don't know how I got them mixed up, but they look nothing alike.
He's the big guy. He's a cop in Toronto right now.
Oh,
but he also worked construction. It's their Portuguese heritage. It skipped me though. I didn't do any construction. These hands are too delicate for construction. I'd hurt myself.
Dirty. It's funny because I'll my hands are on the like whenever I do a video, I'm turning the pages of the comic, and people will message me, "Get those dirty hands off that comic." So we were talking about X-Men, and I was talking about how I think the X-Men caused their own problems, like with Take It In Xavier, Take It In Sabretooth. What are your thoughts on that? I'm just kind of curious since you missed out on the first 10 minutes of our conversation.
Like the thoughts on X-Men being like shit disturbers?
Yeah, I think they cause like the example that I gave was Rogue was she ran off, and she was in all emotional. She ran off. I think she was going to Gambit or something like that. The rest of the X-Men were like, we got to get her. So they're going to stop her from making a bad decision, and they're racing off, and they get in the car, and Cyclops gives this big speech like 2 pages prior that like we got to get her because if she gets arrested and people touch her, they're going to fall down. She's not going to get a fair shake. We just want a fair treatment. And then they get pulled over by the police, and Cyclops blasts the police car and keeps on going because they don't have time for that. And I'm like, but they just want to be treated like everybody else, right? Blasting police cars. I can't stop my drunk friend from making a bad decision. I got to stop when the police, woo. So I always thought that was funny. How dare you guys be so like,
I feel like they've gone through so many different personality changes.
Well, that's
years. Because I remember, I can't remember where I stopped reading because I don't remember what came last. It was either Secret Wars, the last one where like worlds collided and Doom created an entirely new planet.
That was literally the last Marvel comic I ever read, and I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, and I like that story.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent.
But it was that, and then there was Avengers versus X-Men, and they had the whole like Phoenix thing where everybody had a bit of the Phoenix, and then like Cyclops kills Xavier. And now I stopped reading for a while, and I come back and I was like, Xavier's fine. He's walking now. That was the best death he could have had.
Yeah.
I was like, what happened? Because I've stopped for so many years, and I just I stopped like reading Marvel or DC. I was trying to look into other things. I was reading like Harrow County and Lock and Key, and just venturing into other things. Started going to a lot of novels, but I come back and now like because then Cyclops was super pompous and arrogant, and I was like, somebody should just kick you in the face, like you're so. And now X-Men are kind of like very high and mighty, but they want to help everybody. So I don't know. Like this whole Hellfire Club story is interesting. Like I don't know who X-Men are now. I feel like they keep changing. If you didn't like X-Men because they were one way when you were younger, they're completely different now. Yeah. Whatever way that was, they're different now. It's like every 5 years they switch personalities.
See, I during the and I'm sure Fabrizio will have my back on this. Growing up, like up until like the Tom DeFalco years, so I'm talking about the 70s, the 80s, and up until probably 1997. I think Quesada took over Marvel Comics. Continuity of character was very big in comics. Like Stan Lee, this is Reed Richards, this is Spider-Man, and this is their personalities. And Spider-Man didn't act this way, and I feel now is almost like anti-continuity. Like Mark Maia is going to write the X-Men, and you're going to have them behave this way, and then Fabio takes over the X-Men. I don't care what Mark did. That doesn't matter. This is my X-Men, and they contradict your X-Men, and then whatever, he leaves, and then I take over. Well, I don't care what Fabrizio did. I like what Mark did, and I'm going to, and I find that's jarring for new readers. Like there's no, what do you think about
I feel in a way like I'm a new reader because I'm coming back into it. Like, so I'm trying to catch into what the story's going on. And I find there's so much politics and so much change to the X-Men that I was like, I don't even know what's happening. Okay. And here's it's hard to jump in right now with X-Men because it's like there's a round table, there's good guys, there's bad guys. Juggernaut he's just been announced as part of the new X-Men team. I was like, you're a good guy now? He's like kissing ass to Jean Grey, who's like dead again. And who cares? Who cares if she dies? She'll be back.
Well, Kamala Khan just died, and now she's back 3 weeks later.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, she's in the Hellfire Gala. She's back. So, and then when she died, it was so out of the blue. It was like, I read that story. I was like, did Kamala just die? It was like, there's no way she's going to stay dead the way it happened. It was
especially with a movie coming out next month, right?
And there wasn't enough buildup. It was just like 2 pages. Something happened. She got involved. She's dead. It was like, what? This wasn't your epic death. So, but she died. Anyways, what I don't understand, and if anybody's reading Marvel, if you can tell me, Iron Man seems to be all over the place. I'm reading one story where he's like, he's seeing shit, but he's still head of S.H.I.E.L.D. I thought S.H.I.E.L.D. was gone, so I'm confused there. He's lost Stark Industries to, what are they called? Orcish? I can't remember what they're called. Another company who's against mutants, but they bought out, it was a hostile takeover of Stark Industries, and they made Sentinels that use the Iron Man suit technology, so you have giant Iron Man hunting down mutants now. So you have Tony, who says all he has is Iron Man armor in one issue, and his company got bought out. And there's another one where he's in the Avengers, and he seems fine. He seems just like regular.
Also, in another comic, he's behaving differently and acting different.
These stories are running parallel. And one, he's clearly like down and out, Tony. All I got is the suit. They took my company. Then you go over to like Avengers, and he's like, I'm fine. If I just read Avengers, I wouldn't know any of this other stuff was happening with him. And then you read this other story, and he's like, he's seeing shit, and he's the lead of Shield. Again, I thought Shield was gone, but I wasn't sure he was still in Shield.
Marvel used to be really. Like I know the Jim Shooter years. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief of the X-Men, of Marvel Comics for I think the greatest point in the late 70s and most of the 80s. This was continuity, and he had like guys like Roy Thomas and the name is escaping me, that were like continuity cops. You can't do this, you can't do that. And then he would say, don't have Wolverine for 3 months because he's been overexposed and people aren't going to appreciate that. And then even DC did that with the Joker. They had a moratorium for 2 years, no new Joker stories. So and now what you're saying, I haven't read it, but what you're saying is we have Iron Man in different circumstances and Iron Man over here, and they're in name only, or they're the same.
And it's all happening parallel. It's not like a story where I'm reading the current stuff, and there's I feel like there's 3 different Iron Mans going on. Like, not just different stories. I get different stories. This one he's getting gas. This one he's buying apples. Sure, I get different stories. There's like, this one I'm broke. This one I'm crazy. This one everything's normal. I was like, what's happening? Who are you? Like, I don't know what's happening.
Did either of you guys read the X Factor with Wolverine? They all wore the dark suits, and Deadpool was a member of the team? Because Deadpool turns around to Logan and says, how can you be in so, because Deadpool could, whatever, he could break the fourth wall. He goes, how could you be in so many different comics and different suits all the time? He goes, are there more than? And I just thought it was kind of funny because, Wolverine, he was in the Avengers. He was in the, his own comic. And then he was in the Savage Land at the same time. And it just made me laugh. He's just dressed in the same thing. How can you be one character? And that's the kind of thing I think, because my sister, she has 5 kids. And every once in a while they'll ask, could you read a comic to us? And she's like, no. She goes, I don't get it. I don't know what's going on. It's confusing. And I think that's like a bad point of entry for newbies. Like, okay, I'm focusing my thoughts better. Do you feel that comic books are welcoming, are newbie friendly?
I'd say no for some of them, because like, especially, I think you need to know too much backstory.
Correct.
For a lot of them, like X-Men, I think there's too much politics going on. Again, I'm a big comic book fan. I've been reading it for years, but I took a hiatus, and now I'm coming back. And if I was new, I'd be like, "What is happening?" They have no idea what's going on.
Let me ask you this question then, Fabrizio. You've been my computer just started acting weird. Do you think that's why manga is selling so much? Do you think manga is selling better than American style comics because it's newbie friendly?
I mean, I don't have kids. I have nieces and nephews, and I did do this thing at a school recently, and I just keep thinking about it. I asked every class that came in there, I'm like, who here reads comic books? And there was like 2 out of 120.
Wow.
And then a lot of them are like, we don't even know where to buy comics. They said that to me. I mean, it's not like they don't have a computer, but they're like, we don't know. Where do you buy comics? I just think availability is key.
Yes, I think that's a problem. Mark, you're one of the first people that I've spoken to on my channel that still says that they go into a comic book store every Wednesday. Yep. It's good for you. But Chuck Dixon said this, that nobody just walks into a comic book store. Like, they wake up, they go to work, and then, you know what? I think I'm going to go into a comic book store and buy a comic book today. The only people going into comic book stores are people like us that are interested in comics. I think, but people do go to a Barnes and Noble because they saw something and they're like, you know what? I think I'll pick up a manga. I think I'll pick up One Punch Man. I saw a T-shirt or a buddy of mine's been reading it. I don't know. I am kind of fearful for the American comic book medium.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's here's 2 things. I guess 2 thoughts.
Sure.
Let's start with one. One thought. Okay. Is I found when I was reading comics when I was a kid, I was getting into it, and I used to be like, "Oh, when did this happen?" And it's like, "Oh, it happened during this event." And they used to have more of those "Nuff said" stands or whatever at the bottom corner. Like, when did
I
this
used to
happen?
call the yellow caption boxes.
Yeah, it always had it. And I was like, well, I'm going to read those issues. And that made me buy a lot of comics. I was like, oh, what's that story? And like, check out the Torment story. So I go buy the Torment story, check out the, whatever. And I'd go and I'd find the story and be like, okay, it's these 6 issues is this story. But there's so much effort being put into the overlap because you want people, I got them for this story. But there's, you get 6 issues story, 3 issues in, there's a hook that goes beyond those 6 issues, and then there's a hook that goes beyond those, and a hook that goes beyond those. So there's all this overlap of stories to keep the person buying once they start buying.
Yeah,
and
like the A and the B stories, like soap operas.
Yeah, so it's like they're priming you for the next one before they wrap up this one. Where I found before, it seemed more like it was they weren't trying to, I guess, market to me as much the next story, and it was very much, here's the story. Oh, it's done. Whoo! You might see a silhouette of something that's going to go to the next one, but I feel like, hey, I've got the entire story. It's done. And if I read the next story that silhouette was hinting at, I didn't need to read this other story before then. It was like I would have gotten a little extra information. It was like, ooh, he was in the Starbucks in the back drinking a coffee, but it had nothing to do with the story. And then next issue is all about Dr. Doom. And it's like, so I guess what I'm saying is I didn't feel like there was so many hooks before to drag you along. And I guess it could be working for them, but when you're coming in as a new person, it's hard to follow because there's so much intertwining stories. Right. And you get Spider-Man and the Spider-Boy, and they're talking about the Spider-Verse. But what if I didn't read Spider-Verse?
I like what you said about what I call the yellow caption. But there used to be a lot of editorial, like you would see the hand of the editor, like Ben Grimm goes, "Oh man, it's the Hulk again. I'm tangling with the Hulk again," and then on the bottom would see Ben, the Thing once fought the Hulk in issue 112 of the Fantastic Four. You know what I mean? And then, like you said, I'm like, oh, the Thing fought the Hulk. I got to get that issue, and then you get excited and you buy it. But you don't see any of that anymore. It used to feel like there was like a whole world to explore, and it was like a club, and we were welcome, and the editors were giving us just enough information to go and buy the and now I don't know. I feel like
I'd love
captions. You don't see the thought balloons anymore.
I think those would be great. Like I think I saw 1 or 2 in a Marvel comic the other like the last few days when I was reading one. I can't remember which issue it was, but I used to see them all the time, and they used to encourage me to buy books. Right. And I figured there's a missed opportunity there with digital comics to be like, just click on that yellow thing and it'll take you to that book, or add that book to your wish. Just hyperlink. Just go click and it'll take you to that book, or add it to your reading list. You know what I mean? Like just as your reading list. So you could hit it, bring up a pop-up being like, read it now or add to your reading list. You're like, add it to my reading list. And then when you go to your reading list, you could even have little notes being like, oh, this is about the Thing fought the Hulk. This is why you clicked on this. Because you'd be looking at it as like, why is this issue in here? It's like, oh, that was because of that. Like you could tie that in and there's so much more you could do with digital that I think they're not seeing. Maybe it's because of, coming from the video game design background, there's so much, I think, missed opportunities there. They could just push this to make it further, to like make it more welcoming. So if you want new readers to come in digitally, then you give them that information, give them quick access to information. Don't have them go Wikipedia rabbit hole, which I've done many times before.
Yeah. I do that before. I do a little bit of research before I show a comic, make sure I don't embarrass myself too bit. So Fabrizio, like next year when you launch the spectacular Horace H. Hoover, you got to make sure that the main characters match up. You know what I mean? Like he can't be a pauper over here and he can't be rich over here, married over here, and over here he's never been married. He doesn't recognize his girlfriend in this particular. Like I remember Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man, and then the Amazing Spider-Man, and then the Web of Spider-Man, and I'm like, he's dating Marcy in this comic, and over here he's clearly with Mary Jane. Does Marcy know?
Yeah, the first time I remember really disagreeing, I mean, I'll gloss over a bunch, but really disagreeing with major character decisions was Civil War. I didn't buy half of the character motivations or decisions or actions.
Yeah. I can't explain my feelings on Civil War without getting more political than I really want to.
That was you let certain things slide, right? People act differently depending on, are they in a good mood today? Are they in the bad mood? Sure. But like life-changing decisions. You're like, yeah, I've been reading Captain America for 40 years. I don't buy that decision.
Yeah. Here's another thing. Like, how many of your best friends have you punched in the face and then you're still friends with? You know, like Tony Stark and
Yeah.
and Steve Rogers, they shot lightning bolts and laser beams and power blasts at each other. And then like 6 months later, they're like, yeah, you know, I don't know. Superheroes just, Spider-Man has just like, or Wolverine has like stabbed other heroes and now they're hanging out again. They're friends, you know, but that's such a trope that superheroes fight each other.
I think I actually made a joke for that. There was one. I think it was. I can't remember if it was a preview. It was for like Dice Throne, the Marvel one. Can't remember if it was a preview or the playthrough where I was like Black Panther and Captain Marvel fighting each other because that's what superheroes do.
Yeah, that's what they do, and that's what we wanted to. When you were a kid, you're like, "Oh my god!" You know, again, Hulk fighting the Thing. That was Thor fighting any other superhero. You know what I mean? That sold the comic. You know, and I just think it's funny. Like this, yeah, my best friend over here, he hit me over the head with a hammer once, but we still hang out.
Here's a story. That I might be remembering this wrong now. I don't know a lot of people who've like I read a lot of comics, but I don't actually know that many people around my circles who read comics. Who are in my close friend circles. I don't really have nobody to talk to about it. But there was this story. I think it was Wolverine versus X-Men. Wolverine versus Spider-Man. And I'm pretty sure they've teamed them up a few times. They say it always starts as a versus because it's a fight.
Yeah.
And it's not a fight and they work together.
Misunderstanding. Yeah.
But there was one thing where there was this woman that came up behind Spidey and he turned around and he punched her in the face and he killed her. And she was dying anyway. So it ended up being like I put her out of her misery. And I read this story and I'm pretty sure it was I don't know if it was Wolverine versus Spider-Man or what it was. I know I read it. That's how I remember it.
I
But
have no
I don't
recollection.
know where to find it to be like,
I'll look it up.
it happened. Here it
find out
is.
for you. I want to know
Wow.
Spider-Man accidentally killing a woman.
It was like because he thought it was Wolverine, so Wolverine can take it, and he's just fed up with him, and he turns around and just labels her, and he kills her. And I can't remember what that story is, but I think she was dying, so it was like he felt bad. It was like she was gonna die, she was suffering, but
Oh my God.
I remember
but
there
I'm
was
pretty sure that happened. I gotta go back. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but yeah.
where Hulk goes on a rampage and he knocks an airplane out of the sky, you know, like a DC-10. And I was like, I can't read the Hulk anymore because he just killed more people than Mr. Hyde. You know, and nobody is going to take Mr. Hyde, you know, the villain, and say he's a good guy now. But Hulk, you know, how many people did Mr. Hyde kill in his career of his comics? Less than a DC-10 full of people. And now the Hulk just went up and swatted a plane and blew it up in the air. To me, that there's no like I think Jack Kirby and Jim Shooter, they would be custodians of that. Like, you know what I mean? Like they wouldn't let the Hulk do something like that. But I think like in modern times, I don't think they care about the long term because I guess I'm an old guy, but once the Hulk is knocking airplanes out of the sky, like, you know, like I said before, Bin Laden, it's not like, he's a good guy now. He's on my team. You know, say he killed 3,000 people, but, you know, he's sorry and now he wants to be a hero. You know, I don't know. Once Hulk has a higher body count than, say, like, I'm trying to think of villains who will always be the absorbing man, you know, then you can't, there's no turning back from that. You know, and I feel like the X-Men right now, they segregated. They tried to kidnap Franklin Richards because he's, you know, and Reed and Sue are like, this is our son. Like, no, he belongs to us. He's a mutant. So they have to say that these new X-Men, they're not in control. You know, they're buried beneath whatever Krakatoa, and that's the real X-Men. They're going to come out. Oh, these plant simulacrums were kidnapped.
There's so many things in comics where it's like continue, like like you're expected to know the story, the backstory of these characters, and that's where you'll get the most of the story in some cases because you're like, oh, I get it. Like she was bad, now she's good, now she's dating this guy who was married to her, whatever. There's all these backstories behind these characters, and it helps in a lot of cases to, you know, get the most out of the story. But then at the same time, there's certain stories that you just need to forget. Not that they were bad, but it's like
Angel Punisher.
it's like you need to be into the story you're reading and forget about all the other stuff. It's like, for example, like I get why, you know, I get why it was done, and I think it was beautifully done. The story where like 9/11 where Spider-Man, they did the whole thing, and you see all the heroes and villains, and they're all around New York, and I get it. I thought they did a great job with that comic. And they're telling us the worst thing ever, and I get it, because they're kind of touching in, like, you know, they're touching on real world events,
Right.
but they've had events like that that in a comic book is a small event, right? Yeah, like if you look at it, a comic book world, it's a small event, but you look at it from a real perspective, it's huge.
Right.
But
that doesn't compare to Galactus landing on your planet.
Well, but there's an issue where, like, there's a story that what is it? Why am I driving a blank? The new big baddie in Marvel MCU right now.
Kang,
yes. Where Kang just blew up Washington D.C. Just like gone, just blew it up. That's not a big thing. Nobody really brings that up anymore. There wasn't like a string of stories of people rebuilding Washington D.C. It was like this big story. Like he came in, he had a ship shaped like a sword. It just blasted Washington D.C. to smithereens out of nowhere. Just did it. He just did it.
Yeah.
He didn't say he was going to do it. He just came in and did it. And like nobody brings that up anymore. Like what happened there? Like,
I remember
deal.
back in the old days of DC message boards and Marvel message boards. I don't know if you guys remember that before YouTube and everything. I was actually talking to Kurt Busiek. He was the writer of the Avengers at the time, and he wrote a story where Graviton lifted all the major cities in the world, for London, Moscow, Paris. They floated away into space. And I said, I get what you're doing. Graviton's a major bad guy. He's super powerful and everything. But 3 months from now, are we just supposed to believe that the cities never floated away? Like, you know, I was like, I'm a construction worker. You know how much infrastructure needs to be, all the pipes, the power lines, you know, everything like that. And then like, and he just said, well, it sounds like you're not a comic book fan. And
this is where damage control comes in, right?
Right. It made me stop for a minute, and I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm losing a little bit of that childlike wonder, you know, because do you really want your comic books to be slavishly devoted to the real world? And yeah, he shut me up, you know.
So there's like character details, like string character stories you want to kind of hang on to, but when they get into their events, you got to be like, ooh, put it away. Ooh,
but I know what you mean. There's certain stories that you just have to forget about. Like I referenced the Punisher. Fabrizio, do you remember Frank Castle died? He went to heaven, and then God sent him back on Earth as an avenging angel, and he had magic bullets and he had glowing wings and everything.
No.
And nobody wants. It was a 5-issue series. It didn't sell. It bombed. They forgot about it. And then Garth Ennis just took the Punisher, never referenced it, and just had him back. And you know, it's like one of those things. Angel Punisher. People are like, oh yeah. So like the collective unconsciousness just erased it. You know.
Okay, now see about
like Aunt May died. Does anybody remember in 1995 Aunt May was dead?
Aunt May's died a few times.
I know. Everybody says that she's a frail old lady. Geez, she's got to be the toughest old bird on the planet. She was buried alive by Dr. Octopus. You know,
she was shot at the end of Civil War.
Yeah, she was thrown off a building. Yeah,
like she's. Anyways, another thing that's continuity wise that I think that both DC and Marvel do this, but I think DC does it worse, where they're just mess up continuity all the time, and they always have a crisis event to fix it. Right, and then it always gets messed up again. Like the first crisis event they did, where they got rid of all the different kryptonites and all the different super horse and
all the different versions of the
they
Earth.
Had like a super cow, super horse, They got rid of all that. They cleared it up. Great, and then they brought it all back, and then they kept doing it. But then when they did the New 52, you know, Flashpoint broke into New 52, and I was like, this is great. I love it. I love the commitment that they just got rid of everything. They started again. I was like, I love the commitment to this. And then they went with it for so long that I was like, they're actually doing it. And they made Aquaman interesting. And, you know, like,
did they undo that?
What?
Wasn't it like only 2 years and they undid that again?
Well, yeah, they undid it with Rebirth or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
But they had a good run. And I was like, yeah, this is good. They're going to stick with this. But then, ironically, I thought Superman was the worst. During that whole thing, the Superman stories, I thought were just the worst. Yeah, I thought Aquaman was great. I thought, you know, all the other Justice League people, they were great. But I did not like the Superman story.
You got me to Fabrizio. Let me ask you. Like, let's just say, you know, in 15 years from now, you've been doing HHH for 15 years. do you think continuity is a hindrance, or do you think it's something that should be respected and, you know, and used?
I mean, that's like that's the only thing, not the only thing, but like that's the foundational element, I think. Whenever
Right.
I'm writing a new story, I go back and read my stories, all of my notes. I'm like, okay, I can't deviate from this. Unfortunately, there are times where I'm like, damn it, I wish I could go back and
Yeah.
redo a panel, but I can't. I did it. It's in print, and I got to move forward, so I got to work with it.
See,
Um,
I have friends that say like, oh, continuity doesn't matter, and then I'm just like, all right, well, Legolas could be a dwarf then, right? Because continuity doesn't matter. They're like, no, no, no. I'm like, no. You see, it does matter if you like it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You know, if you're going to watch Star Wars and you're going to find out that Obi-Wan Kenobi was secretly a Sith or something like that, then no, 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 no. So continuity is important. We all acknowledge it, but we kind of hand wave the stuff that we're not interested in. You know,
I think another big, like you brought up a good point with like you read your old stories and you want to make sure continuity is important. And I believe the same thing I would do for my characters. I'd want the continuity to be the same, to be consistent. But we're one person writing one story.
right,
Where
right,
you got Marvel and you got like 20 people writing
right.
one story. Like how many, like there's what, 4 or 5 Spider-Man comic books coming out like bi-weekly. And like there's so many people, they got so many people working, they're churning out so many different stories at the same time. And it's
Right.
like, who checks this all out? And no way all these new writers coming in know all the backstories.
That's
You
the
got to
problem.
depend on your writers, right? Like if you got hired right now to do a DC story or a Marvel story, you'd be like, okay, I got to read, but where do you start reading? What do I read?
yeah.
Mark, Fabrizio, I don't know if you heard the story before, but I was an electrician at the building at Marvel Comics. So they called in and I had to go do something, and they were having Andy Helfer was having a meeting, and they were talking about a proposed event. So I'm up on a ladder, all the Marvel editors are in a circle, and I'm on a ladder practically in the middle of this meeting, splicing wires in a box above them. I'm moving the ceiling, and they're talking, and they had continuity wrong. And I bit my teeth. I wanted to get down off the ladder and just be like, "Excuse me, I've been collecting Marvel since Fantastic Four #1, and you're wrong. You're wrong. You know, you can't do this because this." But I was like, I'm being paid. I'm on company time, and I just closed my eye. You know, I didn't close my eyes. I was working, but I just closed my mouth, and I was like, I cannot believe. And I went back and I told my partner. My partner's like, I don't care. You know, he's not a comic book guy. But oh man, I still think about that. Like, part of me wishes, because the company I work for is no longer in business. I wish I had spoken up and be like, how are you guys? Like, did you ever see that scene in a Woody Allen movie, Annie Hall, when Woody Allen pulls the guy out of, or the guy's talking Marshall McLuhan doesn't know what he's talking about, and Woody Allen goes and he pulls Marshall McLuhan out and he goes, "How you got to teach anything?" I just would have loved that, to just, you know, you were wrong. How do you got to be the group editor at Marvel Comics of the Avengers when this is clearly what happened in issue 114 and blah 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 blah, and then got back out the ladder, made the splice, the lights would have went on, and then I would have left. But I just couldn't.
I do think it's natural. Like if I would work for Marvel tomorrow and they're like, okay, for Richie, you have Daredevil. I think undeniably I'm going to pick my favorite Daredevil. You
Right.
know, my favorite run of Daredevil, and that is my Daredevil, which is very different than the Frank Miller or X, Y, or Z. So I get it. I get it.
But would you disrespect all the other Daredevils?
No, but I just mean I have a Daredevil in mind very, very specifically that would do certain things, make certain decisions. And that, again, that's like the Andy Daredevil is very different than the Frank Miller Daredevil,
Right.
you know, as you go back. So I think it is kind of natural to some degree to pull like your favorite version of a character.
I forget who it was, but they said like comics, it's like improv. Like I don't know if you ever seen improv comedians. Like, so us three were up on stage, and I go, "Hey, look, Mark, you're wearing a chicken on your head." Mark, you can't say, "I'm not wearing a chicken on my head." You have to go, "Yes, I'm wearing a chicken on my head, but you have a banana in your hand." You know what I mean? You acknowledge it, and you move on to something. And now we're talking about the banana because that's what you wanted to talk. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's what comic books have to do. Like Dr. Doom is the descendant of Reed Richards. You know what I mean? So, okay, Dr. Doom is the descendant of Reed Richards. Yes, and you're my long lost, but that, you know, I acknowledge that, but here's the story I wanted to tell. And I feel like it's disrespect. Like, now I'm writing, or whatever, some guy's writing X-Men right now, and they just completely forgetting about the Fabian Nizenta version of the X-Men, and contradicting it. No, we acknowledge that it exists, but here's the change that I want to do. You know, Mark, you did this. Mark said this, and here's yes, Mark, and here we go. Like you can't just say no.
Yeah.
You know, Cyclops was never the leader of the X-Men, or you know, Superman never married. Oh, Peter Parker never married Mary Jane. I find that to be completely disrespectful. You know what I mean? Like have them fight like a normal couple and break up and separate for a while or whatever. But to just hand wave it away, I thought that one more day when Mephisto dematerialized their marriage, I don't know. I find that to be disrespectful. It happened, acknowledge it, and then bend it in the direction that you want to. Don't break it.
Let me ask a question for you guys. Oh,
I'm
sorry. No. Sorry. I'll answer that question first. So, well, I didn't think it was a question. I just kind of agreed what you were saying. Like, I think like I'm a fan of continuity.
Right.
So like I like when it's there. I like when I see it in stories, but it can enrich a story, but it can also like work against it when you're talking about bringing in new readers, right? Because people can get lost. It's like starting, you know, Game of Thrones on season 3 or whatever. Like, you know, it's just
right.
Like skip the first 2 seasons. You're just like, oh, who are all these people? Why do they hate each other so much? So I guess I'm a fan of continuity. If that's like where I have to be on there, and I just hope editors, like I don't know how these editors have so much information in their head. I guess that's their job too.
Right.
But I'm guessing like if you got good editors, and they'll keep you on track. I would hope.
Right. I don't know if you're familiar with Denny O'Neil. Denny O'Neil's one of my favorite comic book editors of all time. He was a pretty much like Nightfall, all the Batman stories from pretty much right before the Crisis on Infinite Earth, I think almost until like 2010 or something like that. And he controlled what he could control, but sometimes people above him would tell him stuff. But he used to say that he was the custodian of Batman, and his job was to keep Batman a viable selling character for you right now, so you could write Batman, sell Batman comics, pay your bills, pay your mortgage, and then not only that, but the next guy, and then the next guy, and the next guy. So he was very like, people would come to him, okay, I got this idea about Batman where like he breaks his rules about killing people, and he's like, no, Batman doesn't kill, Batman this, because the next guy is going to get Batman, and there's certain rules that need to be, and you know, he was made no bones about Batman doesn't do this, Batman behaves this way. So, you know, you couldn't go too far out of his rules, and I think that's smart. Like if you're going to write the Fantastic Four, Reed Richards and Sue, they fight, they bicker, but they're the ultimate couple. You know, Johnny Storm, he's never going to get married. He's playing the, you know what I mean? Peter Parker is the hard luck hero. You know, he might have a streak of good luck, but ultimately he's going to be that schlub that stumbles and falls, but gets up again, and he's happy to do it again. You know, there has to be like the illusion of change, but ultimately there's and I'm not talking about like creator-owned comics that are limited run. You know, I got this good story. Like, I don't know if spoiling Hellboy, but Hellboy dies at the end. You know what I mean? There's a finite end. That's fine. You know, but like these Spider-Man, Superman's not just going to lose his temper and strangle Lex Luthor to death. You know what I mean? That might be a great story, and that you might. Oh, that is a cool story to tell. But the editor's job is to be daddy, smack you in the back of the head, you know, stop talking, sit down in the car, do your job, keep going forward. I don't know. I think that's important, and I think that's kind of missing. I don't know.
Well, there's room to tell those stories, right? Because like you had Injustice, and Superman went ballistic, and I enjoyed Injustice, and I thought that was pretty cool to see that. Then they did Injustice 2, and I thought they were really kind of stretching a little bit thin, but I read it anyways. So I don't know, like I get the continuity, but I also like to see those characters every once in a while come out and be like, and just do these almost like what ifs, right? Like
right. There's room for that's why DC
Punisher
has the Elseworlds. That's why Marvel has the what ifs. You know, what if Superman strangled Lex Luthor to death? I'd buy that comic. You know, but you know, Superman is one way, and I think as much as I love Frank Miller, I think he was a genius. I'm an Alan Moore fanboy, but like this deconstruction of superheroes. You know, I assume all of us read The Watchmen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I thought that was brilliant, and I love it. But I think like enough with the deconstructing of superheroes. Like, you know, when Superman lands, we all go, "Oh my God, Superman's here!" Like, I don't know. I think like the Zack Snyder film here. I'm going to lose all my subscribers by saying this, but I thought the Zack Snyder film fundamentally got Superman wrong. Even though nobody knew who Superman was, the first time he lands, people go, "Who's that guy?" They should be awed and inspired by how good he was, you know, and like I don't know who this guy is, but I like in the Christopher Reeve movie, he grabs the helicopter, and next thing you know, everybody's like, "Who is this guy?" We get an expose, and he sells newspapers. We all want to know who he is. You know, we all love him already. I thought the Zack Snyder, when everybody was afraid of Superman, they fundamentally got Superman wrong. Like, you know,
I never actually thought of it that way, but the one thing you bring up that movie that just irks me in that movie is the bad guys have won, and then they turn around and be like, "Lois, you're with us. Why? Why? Why?" That it's just like, for what reason? Random human girl, come with us, and then they get her on the ship, and that leads to their downfall. Yeah. But I'm like, why did you even do that? And that just irks me so much that it's in there. And I watched it again, and I remember watching it until like I can't remember why, but this was a while because I've had this argument for myself for a while. But I remember watching it, and I was like, and watching it again, and be like, "Okay, Brittany, watch this." And like, okay, why did they bring her on? Can you explain to me why they brought her on the ship? They already won. Just go on the ship. What's this one human girl? Why do you want her? And if they didn't bring her on, they would have won. It would have been over.
Because we needed a plot device to lose. I remember when Pa Kent told Clark, "You shouldn't have saved those kids on the bus." I was like, "This isn't a Superman movie. I'm watching The Boys or something like that. You know, this isn't Superman."
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see the new Batman movie? With
yeah.
I always call it the Twilight guy. I can't remember his name. Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
I liked it, but I watched that scene where he's chasing the Penguin, and I always say it's the LIE because that's the highway that I commute on, and I'm thinking of. I'm just driving on the LIE coming home from work. Oh man, today was rough. You know, and all of a sudden I get hit by the Batmobile. I'm spinning around because he's chasing the Penguin, and an oil truck flips over, it explodes, and now I'm out of a car, and I'm on a comp disability thing, and all because he wanted to catch the Penguin, and then he let him go. Like, that wasn't Batman. I know it's spectacular to look at, but like, if I wrote that scene, and Fabio, you back me up, you're a comic book guy, you know, Batman would have shot a tracer on that car, left, and then when that car pulled over, he would have landed and then got the Penguin, you know, without property. How many people died just commuting home from work because Batman wanted to talk to Colin Farrell? I thought, you know, even in the movie theater, I'm just like, oh God. You know, and then in the Tim Burton movie, Batman goes into the Penguin's warehouse and he drops a bomb and blows up the entire. He might as well have been the Punisher, you know.
I am a minority. I was not a fan of the new Batman movie, for many reasons. Mainly because it felt like a low budget David Fincher movie to me. But I know a lot of people liked it, so I don't want to.
Oh, you can say whatever you want. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
I don't remember not liking it. I know I watched it and I was like, okay, I think I need to watch it again before I give any opinion on it. But I know when I watched it here, I watched it. We have a little theater set up in the studio, and I watched it. It was me, Brittany, Jess, and her husband, and the girls fell asleep. And me and her husband stayed up and watched it. So, anyways, I'd like to watch it again. But I like the style of it, but it's I didn't come out of there saying I loved it, but I find there's certain movies that I really like now that I didn't like the first time I saw them, and I like them more the second time. It's like something. It's like it went over my head. Like when I first saw The Matrix, everybody was going gaga over The Matrix. And then everybody in the theater was like, "Oh my God, The Matrix is amazing! You gotta watch The Matrix." And I saw it. I was like, yeah, I thought it was okay. Yeah, I thought it was a neat idea. I was like, I didn't not like it. I was just like, yeah, it's okay. It's a big budget movie. I like big budget movies. And then I had to go watch it a second time because I was in college, and the whole class went. It was a whole thing. And then we went to a bar later. I was like, okay, let's go to the Matrix. I fell asleep. I was 10 minutes into it. I was done, and it was the middle of the day. It was like, okay, let's go. And then years later, I was like, you know what? I'll watch the entire trilogy again, or whatever it was. And I was like, this is really good. I really like this. So like I enjoy all of them. I know some people being like everything after the first one was sucked, but like after I watched them again, I was like, I really enjoy these movies. So there's so many movies I go back and I was like, I really enjoy this.
I drive my wife crazy. I go to a movie and it's like I put my shields up and I get critical, and this couldn't happen. This guy, and then the second time I watch it, I just watch the movie and I'll enjoy it. But it's funny. We watched The Matrix, and the first thing I said after it was over, I'm like, so the robots need humans as power batteries? Why don't they just kill off humanity and use cows? They give off body heat. Plug into the, and then problem solved. They don't have a reset. So I said the premise is flawed. So I was, that was my only thought on The Matrix. I've since grown to really like it, but
yeah, it's I feel like I have so many movies like that, and I think like this Batman could be one of them. Like it could be like I just saw it, and maybe next time I watch it, I was like, this is really good.
I liked it because it was Batman was a detective. I like when Batman's a detective. I don't want Batman to wear a powered suit and then absorb bullets and machine guns, because then he's Iron Man, and Batman's not Iron Man. Each superhero needs his own motif, and this movie was to me the closest to comic book Batman. But comic book Batman doesn't get shot at. He shows up behind you and chokes you out from behind and then leaves, and then 4 hours later takes out another guy and chokes you out. And, you know what I mean? Like, if Batman's jumping in front of you and bullets are bouncing off his chest, then he just should be shooting repulsor rays. But I guess that looks good on a screen, blowing up cars on the LIE as a guy's just trying to get home. I don't know. I didn't like the Tim Burton Batmans. I like the Chris Nolan Batmans. They were good and dark. They were pretty good. They were probably the best. But there hasn't been a good Batman movie yet. They're all Batman.
Yeah. I'm good with pretty much all the Well, like the Tim Burton. Well, there's the first, or like the Tim Burton ones. I liked them when they were new, but going back to watching them now, I was like, it's got a bit of nostalgia for it. And like I could even probably like the third one a little bit. Again, just as nostalgia, but the fourth one I never liked.
Let me ask you this. To both of you guys, who was your favorite Joker?
Oh, Heath Ledger is my favorite Joker.
Yeah, I mean Heath Ledger.
I actually got excited when I heard they cast him. I said, "This is going to be a creepy Joker." It was the first movie that was actually correct opinion.
I thought he was fantastic. His portrayal of Joker was just off the charts. It was so good. It was so good. It was
scary.
It wasn't how I pictured the Joker. Like it wasn't what I'd expect. But he came out, and I was like, "This guy's awesome! Like, you're nailing it." It's like this is a Joker I didn't know I wanted.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. What? I'm going to be controversial here. What did you think of Jack Nicholson's Joker?
At the time, I thought Jack Nicholson was great for the Joker because I like Jack Nicholson, right? I like the big smile, like hey, like I
thought he looked great, but I thought he was obvious. I thought he made every obvious choice, and I was like, oh wow, I was excited for it, but I was disappointed once I saw it.
Like I wouldn't even I wouldn't put him on the top Joker list now. Like I think he might actually be close to the bottom.
Cesar Romero is better.
So yeah, like he's got some like nostalgic class to him. The Romero.
Who would you cast? Every actor's alive. Every actor's in their prime. From the beginning of time to now. Who would you cast as the Joker? Who do you think would have been the perfect Joker?
Hard to say.
Yeah.
I want to see somebody that could sound like Mark Hamill's Joker.
Yeah, his voice is great.
not look like Mark Hamill.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want it to be Mark Hamill, but I want that voice to come out of a body. And I don't know who that would be.
I have two choices. My ultimate choice would be Peter O'Toole as the Joker. I think that tall, skinny, like he looks like the Joker from Death in the Family. Peter O'Toole in his prime. And then my second choice, just because it would make me laugh through the whole movie, would be Christopher Walken. Just put him in that makeup and, okay, Batman, yeah, I'm going to kill you.
Well, weren't they talking about what's his name who played Green Goblin?
Willem Dafoe.
William Dafoe. Weren't they talking about him doing Joker?
At one point, I heard he was in talks. He would be excellent too. I loved in the new Spider-Man movie when he threw away the helmet and he made some sort of joke like, "This is how I was supposed to look." Because I that first Spider-Man movie I loved, but you take somebody as distinctive as Willem Dafoe and then you put him in a mask, that was just criminal.
No, I did not like the first Spider-Man movie. I still don't. The second one I thought I didn't really like any of the
Sam Raimi,
the Raimi movies. I like Sam Raimi's horror movies. I like his Army of Darkness. I like his Dragon to Hells. I like that.
Cabin in the Woods.
I don't like. Yeah, did he do Cabin in the Woods? No, he didn't. Do Cabin. Did he do Cabin in the Woods?
Yeah, he did Cabin in the Woods.
I didn't think that was him. I thought that was without. Oh, did he do? It was written by
Joss Whedon, or
it was somebody that worked with Josh Whedon or something. He's very.
You're wrong. Now I'm doubting myself.
Like maybe he directed Cabin in the Woods. I can't remember. But anyways, I like him doing horror movies. But the when I heard he was doing Spider-Man, I was like, eh. And I watched it, and I came out, eh. Like I watched it a few times, and I could see because I'm a Spider-Man fan, so I'll watch it, and I'll watch the second one because I think out of the three, that's the best one, and I think Doc Ock was great.
He was excellent.
And the third one was absolute garbage. But overall, as a series, I did not care for those three movies. I don't like Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. I don't like
him. There's something about him.
I don't like what's her face as Mary Jane, because Mary Jane's one of my favorite characters, and I don't Kristen Dunst.
Yeah, she's not like Zaftig, right? Is that the word? She's supposed to be this Vavoom, and Kristen Dunst does not say Vavoom.
Kristen Dunst, I didn't care for her as Mary. She's always got this kind of like lazy-eyed delivery, like, and I was like, yeah, you're not Mary Jane. Get off. And so I never liked her as Mary Jane. But I loved the Amazing Spider-Man. I thought that was fantastic. I thought
Andrew Garfield was the best Peter Parker out of the three.
I thought Garfield did a great job. His chemistry with Gwen Stacy's character. Who played Gwen Stacy? I'm terrible with actors' names, but Peter Parker's and Gwen Stacy's chemistry in that movie I thought was fantastic, and they took the time to like build their characters, and I thought that was great. And then they came up with the second movie, and that was garbage.
Oh my god, the second movie.
They jumped to garbage really fast.
Yeah, that was bad. Yeah.
Like, what happened to the second one's supposed to be better, and then the third one's garbage? Like, what happened to that formula?
You're a old-time Spider-Man. Have you read reprints of Spider-Man or Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Peter Parker?
Yeah, I have reprints of that.
I thought you were going to say you have it.
I have things I collect. I have collected reprint issues so I could read Xavier when he's older. They did this a while ago. They did this thick black and white newsprint edition of the first few issues of Amazing Spider-Man. So you can just read it. It's just one big Bible. And it's all black and white, so it's cheap.
But if you read that, Peter Parker was a jerk in the first issue. And so I forget who said this, and I completely agree. If Uncle Ben didn't die, Peter Parker was going to be a villain. Spider-Man was going to be a villain. He was on his way to being Dr. Octopus. The first panel, Liz Allen says to Flash, invite him to a party. And Flash is like, hey, Pete, you want to go to... And Peter Parker goes like, why you... And he yells and screams, and then his internal monologue is like, they don't understand me. I'm all alone, and I'm a scientist. I'm a genius. And then he gets bit by the thing. First thing he tries to do is make money off of it. Just imagine Uncle Ben didn't die, he would have been making money. He would have been going, like, to use modern parlance, he was this incel, didn't like it. He would have been a villain, So I thought Andrew Garfield did that, like, angry, misplaced Peter Parker the best out of the three. Tobey Maguire, not Tobey Maguire. What's the new guy's name? I can't even think of his name.
Holland.
Tom Holland.
Yeah.
He's not Peter Parker. He's somebody else in a Spider-Man suit. I never thought of him as Peter Parker. He's too happy. He's everything's coming kind of easy to him. And now he's Iron Man Jr. The MCU is an alternate version of all these characters. But like you said, that the first Andrew Garfield movie, that was Peter Parker, an angry guy, kind of scowling at people, kind of a jerk. Uncle Ben has to sit him down and, read him a riot act, get his head strate. I thought that was pretty good.
That was the first movie I came out of, and I was like, I really liked that movie. I thought they did an excellent job. And then people at work the next day are like, I thought that movie was garbage. I was like, what? Yeah. Because they're like, we love the Tobey Maguire. I was like, get out of here. We're not friends anymore.
Tobey Maguire looked perfect. It was physically to look at. He was perfect as Peter Parker.
His line delivery just hurt. I thought he couldn't deliver the jokes. Like, he's a good actor, but I didn't think that was the right role for him. I thought, like, when he's making, he's trying to, like, crack wise while he's defeating villains, and I thought the jokes just, I don't know if they were written badly or they were delivered badly, but it didn't stick. They didn't land, like, the punchlines, the whole, like, was nice pants. Those your mom, girlfriend, your boyfriend make those for you, whatever the hell that is. Like, it was. I know people brought that up and like, you couldn't say that now. I was like, regardless, you should have said it before because it's terrible. It wasn't funny. Like, regardless of what it was not funny. You should have never said it, and it's just been written a better joke. It was terrible.
Me too. I know you're a Jack Kirby, Stan Lee fan like myself, and I am bristling. I'm nervous, butterflies in my stomach about a new Fantastic Four movie coming out. Nobody has been done dirty like the Fantastic Four. The cartoon stunk, the movie stunk, and now they're doing it again. And I think I could say this without you two jumping down my throat. I think we're at the downward spiral of the Marvel movies, and I've been waiting for Fantastic Four. That's my ultimate favorite comic book since I was a kid, and
I love superhero stories. I got to give it a chance. I gotta like.
Oh, you're not a Fantastic Four fan?
No, I like Fantastic Four. I feel like I had to like the other movies, not the last one. Not the last one. The last one was garbage. The last one with Michael B. Was it Michael B. Jordan?
Yeah.
Was it? That was trash. Like, burn that off the planet. I'd rather watch that the movie that was never released. The one was done in the early 80s.
Oh, the Roger Corman movie?
Yeah.
Shelved. I'd rather watch that again.
That's the most accurate Fantastic Four movie. The Roger Corman movie that was never supposed to be released.
the one with the Michael B. Jordan one was absolute trash.
Yeah,
Here's one thing that doesn't make any sense in that movie. First of all, this is not why I don't like. This is just a pet peeve. Like, the movie overall, trash. Now I'm going to dig through the trash. I'm going to pick this one little bit that just irritates me.
Go through the trash and show me a turn.
So the actor, I like the actor. He played in that drum movie. He's the guy.
The actor who played Reed Richards is an excellent actor. So, and I saw him while the movie was in the theaters, trashing the movie.
Well,
I said, why should I see this movie?
He's got a scar somewhere on his face, like his chin or something. The old actor has got a scar, and I know this. So the movie starts, young Reed Richards, and he's got a scar. But it's such a bad makeup scar. And I remember sitting there being like, what am I looking at? Like, why does he have that? Is that supposed to be like it's supposed to be fake in the movie?
Oh,
like, it looks so bad. I was like, is that scar supposed to... And then as I'm watching this, being like, I can't get my eyes off this bad looking scar. And then it occurred to me, I was like, wait a second, are they trying to give him a scar because when he's older he has a scar? I was like, that makes no freaking sense. I was like, you're getting a 1 week, few day window of this kid. He could have gotten that scar way later.
You didn't need to address it. Yeah.
You did not have to address the scar. It doesn't make any sense. He does a shit job of it. It would have been better if you did want to have him fall on his face and get a scar and like maybe got into a fight, and then Ben came up and stuck up for him. And then you have some sort of story and you see it and never bring it up again. You're like, oh, that's cool. Little thing. He's got a
When
scar.
they got their powers, he banged his head.
Whatever. There's so many things you could have done if you wanted to bring it in, but if you didn't ever, just don't give the kid a scar. That didn't even make sense. Didn't even make sense. It angered me. It's angering me now. And then that whole movie, imagine the entire movie, how crap it is. And then you watch the trailer, and the trailer is just a bunch of lies because most of what's in the trailer isn't even in the movie.
Well, now you're me in the Matrix. The whole movie, I'm just like, this could have been a cow. This could have been a cow in the pod. So I focused on something that doesn't matter, and then I ruined the movie for everybody around me.
Watch the original trailer, and then go watch the movie. And you'll be like, where's that scene? Where's that scene? Where's that scene? Like, it's just, they're just gone. They don't exist. They never made it to the movie. And one thing they've never gotten right, and here's the thing. I don't mind the Fantastic Four movies, other than that one. I don't mind them, but I watch them as like I don't think they're good. I watch them as like a B movie superhero movie. But they've never done Doctor Doom right.
Right.
Doctor Doom, I hated that Doctor Doom. He was like a pompous rich kid in those movies, like the ones, not the last movie. Forget the last movie. He was absolute garbage as well. Everything in that movie was garbage. We're just never going to mention that one again.
He was that actor from that plastic surgery TV show, right?
Yeah. The other ones where they did what, 2 or 3 of them, I can't remember. They had the Silver Surfer and the Rise of the Silver Surfer.
I think they did 2 of them with that team.
That series, that Doctor Doom was also garbage because he was like the pompous rich kid, right? I want a serious Doctor Doom. I want somebody who's got like the armor of like Tony Stark, but like just an Red Skull personality, and he likes to dabble in magic. Do you know what I mean? Like I want an asshole in Iron Man armor. That's what I want.
Doctor Doom is my all-time favorite bad guy of all comic books, and I feel like I'm very protective of that character. So I agree with you. Like I'm like trying to read, who are they going to cast as this guy? Who are they going to? And Doctor Doom has to be over the top, because he's going to be, because what's his name? Hugo Weaving was V in V for Vendetta, and he wore the mask, so he kind of overacted because he knew not to take the mask off. That would ruin the character. And I feel like Doctor Doom, all right, you could show him young college Doctor Doom, but once he puts that mask on, he never takes his. So he's got to be over the top, animated, And I don't know who would they cast. Like there were rumors of Keanu Reeves. As much as I love Keanu Reeves, probably the only actor I do like. He I don't think he has the animation. They need somebody like a theater actor, like an opera actor. John Lithgow. John Lithgow, because you're not going to see his face anyway. Just acting.
I think the personality of Kang.
He was good.
I think he did great.
He was great in Loki. He was the best part of the Loki show. He was menacing.
Like the serious Kang, like the Kang from Ant-Man, like that. Like
I didn't even see
Kang. Well, that Kang, that I liked him as Kang. I thought he did a great job as Kang.
Is it worth
I was
seeing?
like, I could buy this Kang, but there's like you didn't see this movie. I don't know if this necessarily ruins anything because it's the end credit scene where they show a bunch of Kangs, like because of the Council of Kang, and they show a bunch of Kangs, and none of those Kangs I want. None of those Kangs. None of the Council of Kangs I want.
It was different actors playing different Kangs.
It's the same actor, and they just wanted to show that there's a lot of different Kangs. So they did this thing, and they're like, "Look, this Council of Kangs," and there's like hundreds of them from all these different things. Just kind of what the guy in Loki said. There's a lot of them, right? But the one that was the main guy in Ant-Man, I liked him, and that's the only Kang I want. None of the other freaky Kangs.
He's good presence.
So that's who I want. That's who I want as Dr. Doom.
Point that I want to talk about. I don't know. We're going over 2 hours. I don't want to monopolize your time, but what do you think? Like multiverse and all of these movies with multiverses. Fabrizio. What do you think of that? Fabrizio's been silent for a while.
It's not going to be a big surprise. I don't like it.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
surprising. I don't like it either. I think it's a crutch.
Yeah, and I know, like, back in the day, probably the Ultimates was, like, the first big one that I can think of. And even that I wasn't a big fan of. Although it does work for, like, random Batman stories like, you know, Gotham by Gaslight or something. Like, I like those work, but when you cram them all together and you have 40 Spider-Mans.
You know, Gotham by Gaslight, or I forget what it was called, that Batman where he was a pirate. That was a great story,
Yeah.
but we all knew that it was a limited little one-off thing that didn't really matter. It was like a Shaggy Dog story. But what I'm talking about, like now, Gamora dies, and then they just bring out another one.
Yeah.
So who cares? I think like in Marvel Endgame, they could just go to different multiverses and get what. So like, I guess we only know a character's dead when their contract is up. Like we know Black Widow ain't coming back because Scarlett Johansson sued sued Disney.
Yeah.
She ain't coming back. But Gamora, she could die over here, come back over here. Who else could die? It does, you know, it is. We already know Robert Downey Jr. is in like 5 more movies and his character's dead. So are there alternate? I find it's lazy and there's no consequences. And if there's no consequence, I don't care.
I'm going to be on the opposite. I like the multiverse. And here's the reason I like the multiverse.
Fabrizio, it's Canadians.
It's because
my wife.
Yeah, you mentioned that nobody can die. Like you can say, yeah, nobody could die. But thing is, like, these characters are being portrayed by real people who are getting old and are eventually going to die or just be too old to do the role. And I don't want to see 75-year-old Hugh Jackman trying to pull off Wolverine still. Right. So
I got no problem recasting.
So they're going to have to, but this gives them an avenue to recast and still keep it canon, being like it's a Wolverine from a different dimension.
Yeah.
And without, it's like they don't have to explain everything. Like, you want to bring Black Panther back, you can be a Black Panther from another dimension if you want, right?
That brings up a point. You think they should have recast Black Panther?
No, I think they did well the way they did. I didn't care for the movie, but I think Disney did.
He was perfectly cast.
Yeah, he was great. It's sad that he died. Yeah. But going back to the multiverse, I think it gives the movies a lot of ins and outs. It allows them to build in the mutants and bring in the ones they can get that still work from the old movies and fill in the gaps with mutants from other universes, other multiverses. So for the movies, I think it works great. And as far as like the multiverse stuff in comics, I think DC takes it a little too far. Marvel does quite a bit of it as well, but I feel they do better job at resetting because they'll do like Age of Apocalypse, and then that's gone. Age of Apocalypse is just gone.
A one-off story.
But DC will keep those characters will stick around forever until like, well, we have to kill everybody again.
To the point where, like DC, I feel like nothing matters. Like you said, you like to do 52, and then 2 years later, Rebirth changed it all. You know
that story. By the way, I went back because I was like, I was reading New 52. I was still buying comics, but then I fell off before it ended, and then I was like, okay, so they're back. So I was like, oh, let me read this story. So I got my DC member subscription, read it. What a piece of shit.
Which one?
The way they ended that story, the New 52, what garbage.
Yeah,
the whole Brainiac story, it was just a dumpster fire. I was like, how did this start off so strong? How did this start off so strong and then end up like I bought every first new I gave you every 52 issues. I gave them each a try. I bought an issue. Be like, okay, I like it. I'll keep reading it. Don't like it, I stopped reading it. But I gave it a try. They weren't all gold, and there's a few of them that I gave it a few gold. Like Superman, I was like, you're gonna get good because you're Superman, but no, you never really got good. But yeah. Supergirl, I liked. Superboy was okay. Supergirl was better. I thought, at least when I read them, I enjoyed that better. But
I remember they had a bundle for $78. You could get every DC 52. So they did that for 9 months. So I got the first 9 issues of all of them. And then when they canceled that bundle, I stopped. That was the end of DC for me. I haven't read a DC comic since then.
Well, I can tell you the way they ended the New 52, garbage.
Yeah.
I told my buddy who was a big DC fan, I was like, have you ever read, I think it was Rebirth, right? I was like, have you ever read Rebirth? And he's like, oh, don't get me started. I was like, that thing's shit. He's like, oh, man, dude, don't even. He got started. And then the text was just like, brrr. just going off.
Did you see Flash? Did anybody?
I saw Flash, and
I can't stand that Ezra Miller. I couldn't stand him since I saw him in that the Harry Potter movie. There's something about his face.
I'm not a big fan of Ezra as the Flash.
I'm not a big fan of Ezra as Ezra.
But he's. I don't like absolutely hate him. Like I don't hate him. Like I'm like I don't know the person.
Yeah, hate's too strong a word. I understand. Yeah.
But like, he's not my favorite Flash. I think I got more attached to the Flash on the TV show, Flash. But I hated the baby scene, the CG babies in the beginning of the Flash movie. Have you seen it?
I didn't even see the Flash movie. I haven't seen a DC movie since Man of Steel. I hated Man of Steel that much that I haven't gone. I take it back. I saw the first Wonder Woman. I thought it was excellent.
Right. Yeah, well, I liked the Flash movie, but I was the only person that went there that liked it. Not liked it so much that I was like, you got to go. I was like, I enjoyed it. Like I watched it. I was like, oh, okay.
Did you see Blue Beetle?
I enjoyed watching this. I haven't seen Blue Beetle yet. That one, usually I'm there like opening day for all these movies, but I've been so tied up, I completely missed the tickets. Like I just completely missed it. It came. Well, the next thing I know is like Blue Beetle box office number. I was like, when did that happen? Like what month are we in?
I don't know. I look at this like I think that the movie sales were artificially propping up the comic book sales of Marvel and DC. Now the movies are all bombing. So I think there's going to be some major shakeups in the mainstream comic book press, which I think will help you, Mark, and will help you, Fabrizio, because people like me want comics. I love comics. I want to read comics, and I think with all of these mainstream properties kind of failing left and right, people are going to look for Horace H. Hoover and My So-Called Life, or So-Called Living. Yeah, I do think to tie everything back to the beginning, I do think there's a golden age of comic. I don't know how much you've been looking at. Okay, let me focus. When in the 80s and 90s, I was into punk rock. And there was U2 and there was Bruce Springsteen and everything like that. But if you were looking, you could find so many good bands. And I've been showing off my record in 45 collection. So many cool, interesting bands. And I think right now it's going on in comic books. You could go to Kickstarter and you could find so many cool, interesting comics. You could find Indiegogo, like my friend RJ at the Fourth Age. He's got Crom the Destroyer and the Valiant Heroes. And you go to Indiegogo, you could get alternative comics, $2 a comic book. Jeez, how, you can't beat that with $1. And then now we got Fund My Comics making all these. I think right now anybody who's interested could find satisfying comics, but the problem is how you got to be interested. You got to go on a website, you got to look. I think we need a new flashing neon sign, hey kids, comics, like when we were kids. Like do you guys think I'm not articulating my thoughts well, but I think there needs to be some sort of new Stan Lee to come out and be like, hey, comic books, like, and I feel that the comic book industry itself is failing the fans. I look at CB Cebulski sitting there in the same chair that Stan Lee had, and nobody knows who CB Cebulski is. He's the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. Why isn't he on the talk shows? Marvel movies are making $1 billion a movie. Why isn't this guy on The View? Why isn't this guy have a webcast? Why isn't this guy on YouTube today, this week in comics? If you want to sit in Stan Lee's seat, you got to have a personality that is larger than life. And I feel nobody is doing that right now. And I think it's a missed opportunity. Maybe you could do it, Mark.
Have you seen the Stan Lee documentary?
I'm sorry?
I'd love to do it, by the way. If somebody gave me the job, I'll take it.
Yeah. What did I see? What
Stan Lee documentary? It's on Disney Plus.
No, I didn't see it.
I just started watching it. It starts off really good. So like I've only seen like 15 minutes of it because having a toddler.
Yeah, having a kid.
We watch movies over a week. One movie, 5 days, right?
Yeah.
So
in between,
yeah. So we're watching a documentary. We watch a bit when we eat, and we watch a bit after we put them to bed. Then we're like, we got to get to bed. So speaking of which, I'm gonna have to wrap this.
Yeah,
up.
I know. I'm sorry I kept you for so long.
It's been a lot of fun.
I came on.
It's been a lot of fun. I came on late, so it was completely my fault. It was, but it was nice meeting you guys. Like, this has been a good talk. Like, I could talk forever. I'm usually not the one that says.
I feel bad for poor Fabrizio because I know you could talk and I know I could talk. And the very first time I talked to Fabrizio, I spoke over him for an hour, and now he just sat there, and I feel bad.
No, I'm listening. I like to. I mean, sorry. Go ahead.
He's a voyeur. No, that was your chance. Not go ahead. That was your chance.
I mean, you just said you want to wrap it up. I'm not gonna like. So, what do you think about the origins?
I'll hang in there for you. I'll hang in there.
Yeah, but hold on, Elle. What did you want me to ask Mark?
If you knew where White Oaks was.
Do you know where White Oaks is?
Yeah, White Oaks is the opposite end of the city for me. I'm near Masonville Mall.
Okay, all right.
That's where I grew up.
That's where my wife grew up, over by
White Oaks.
Oaks.
That's all the friends I know that live there have all had their cars broken into.
Yeah. You hear what he said?
What?
He said all his friends that live there had their cars broken into.
Yeah, it's not the same as when I lived there in the 70s.
So that she was dying to ask you that if you knew where White Oaks is.
That was it. Yeah, that was
But
it.
thank you, Mark. I know you got to get back to your baby Xavier. Do you think he reads minds? That would be how horrible.
Xavier, he might. I think we're. He's starting with mine. He's definitely manipulating me.
Yeah.
To give him whatever he wants because he's so cute.
I want chicken nuggets for dinner.
Yeah. For him, it's mostly cookies. I want cookies. More cookies.
Me too. Thank you, Mark. I'm glad we sorted out the miscommunication at the beginning.
Yeah. No, it's completely my fault. After reading your emails are very clear. I'm the problem. I'll take full blame for that. I am clearly the issue here.
You said a few times in your videos that ever since the child was born, you can't focus. So there you go.
No, everything's thing is like we have a baby and then I quit my day job, so I don't have a regular schedule. Like I don't know what day it is today. Like it's Tuesday. Like I don't know what month it is. People are like, oh, it's like Brittany's birthday was coming up. I was like, holy, are we in July? When did that happen? Like that was back when it happened. But I have no sense of time. Somebody like Jess just messaged me today, and she's like, she wants to get together to play board games. I was like, well, I'm out of the house this weekend, so we can't this weekend because I'm in Toronto. And she's like, oh, we'll do it on a long weekend. I was like, there's a long weekend coming up. I have no idea. I don't even know what month we're in. I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, when I'm on furlough for more than 2 or 3 weeks, I'll stay up to 5 o'clock in the morning, sleep till 3. You know, I turn into a toddler myself. You know, I have no idea what time it is.
I can't do that because I take morning shifts for baby.
Yeah.
So Brittany puts me to bed, but I'm the one that gets them up, feeds them, changes diaper, get them just for daycare, and then she takes them to daycare because she still has an office job where I work from home now.
Okay. Well, good luck. So, well, thank you for coming. I enjoyed talking to you. I could talk comic books for hours, and most people tell me to stop talking, so I appreciate you let me pontificate.
So and put the link. Put the link to that comic book in the description. What was it called again?
Oh, Fabrizio's Horror City.
Yeah, Fabrizio's. Not much.
Yeah, you got to check it out. It's the only thing I can compare it to is it gives me a Hellboy vibe.
Okay, I'll check it out. Like for sure. Just put the link.
There's 2 issues. There's only 2 issues, and you can get both of them. Here I am selling Fabrizio's comic. Fabrizio's right here. But that's how much I love it. I'm not even joking. I read the first issue. And I was like, oh my God, like I saw the cover for it, but I was like, all right, yeah, whatever, just a cover. I try not to read spoilers or anything. And then I read I was like, this comic book was made for me. Like Fabrizio just said, John's going to like this as he was writing. It's everything I want. So I'm not going to give you any spoilers or anything. Just read it.
Yeah, don't tell me. I'll definitely read it. I'm 100% into supporting artists. I go to school.
I'll put the link in the description. I'll put the alternate link so you can go and pick it up. Anything to support that company. I love everything by that company. They are like to me they're like the people that are carrying the torch. It's on newsprint. You know, it's got the corner box. It just looks like comic books the way the comic books are supposed to be. Yeah, cool. This is so good.
Thank you.
I talk too much again.
And I did check out that link real quick. The book looks great, Mark. So I'm excited.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So enjoy that, and then when the Kickstarter comes out.
And if you want to come back on when your Kickstarter is out and promote your comic, you know, I'm all for that. I want everybody to sell it.
That would be great. I just want people to see it. Read it. I hope they like it. If they like it, then they can follow it on Kickstarter. But yeah, please read it. And
I will.
if you like it, say good things. If you don't, just pretend you never read it. So I don't need bad press. I need good press.
That's one of the things on my channel. I don't show off comics that I don't like because there's too much negativity in the world. So yeah.
All right.
I only talk about
Okay, guys.
So thank you. Thanks for coming.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
See
How do
ya.
I get off this thing? I'm just gonna keep pushing the button. Oh, I see an X. Okay.
Yeah,
See
there's
you
a
guys.
lead.
All right,
See
bye-bye.
ya.
Bye.
Bye.
So Fabrizio, thank you for being a trooper.
No, thanks. Thanks for having me. I feel like I didn't contribute very much, but I figured I'd hang
Yeah,
on. and just
I
check it
feel
out.
bad. I feel like I
No.
brought my backup date to the prom and then I danced with the other girl.
No,
We're
it's cool.
still live if anything you want to.
Yeah. No, that's it. We'll catch up later. But I was quiet. I was listening. A lot of
Yeah.
comic book knowledge and movie knowledge that I was unaware of. So that's always
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, Mark Maia, I don't know if I even said this. He has a YouTube channel called Boardgame Coffee, and he does board game reviews and paid promotions for board games. Again, he is from the world of video games, so he's very charismatic. So I knew that me, who talks a lot, I was going to get nothing in edgewise. So
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check out his YouTube channel.
yeah, I'm going to put all the links. I think I put the links in the
Yeah.
description, but I'll put more links.
The book-
And send me.
And the book looks great. I think having a digital first issue for free is like the way to go to get people at least interested, checking out the art. They can kind of see what it's.
Yeah, get yourself.
what's going
Yeah, get a taste. I think he's doing a smart thing.
on. All right, cool.
right,
Yeah, sounds
I'm
good.
gonna
Let
go.
me know.
My wife put my dinner right over here, and I've been looking at it and smelling it, and I don't
All
want to
right.
eat in front of everybody. But thanks a lot for
Sure.
we got to come back. I feel like I got to make it up for you.
No, you're good. Have a good night. I'll talk
All right,
to you
thanks a
later.
lot. Bye bye.